bipartisan housing bill that Trump abruptly refused to sign this week. Plus, former ambassador of Spain and major Democratic Party donor, Alan Solomont. He stops by to talk about the future of the Democratic Party. And finally, our algae obsession continues, this time with an expert from Tufts to explain what the algae bloom means for the climate. That's all ahead. BPR live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The Trump administration has announced $150 million in assistance for Venezuela after two powerful earthquakes left at least 589 people dead. NPR's Pat Matanis reports emergency teams are digging through the rubble of collapsed buildings in Caracas, searching for survivors.
The State Department says it's deploying search and rescue teams from Virginia and California to Venezuela to help locate survivors of the earthquake. The Virginia team will include 80 people and 6 dogs. Local authorities say they believe hundreds of people are still stuck under rubble. The $150 million from the U.S. is for aid groups and United Nations agencies. The State Department has also enlisted help from the Pentagon for logistics and delivery of urgent medical and other supplies. According to the UN, nearly 8 million people in Venezuela were already in need of humanitarian support as the country has been in deep political and financial crisis for many years. Fatma Tanis, NPR News.
President Trump hosted farmers at the White House last night as the administration tries to shore up support among one of his most reliable voting blocs. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reports tariffs and the war with Iran have driven up prices, adding to the financial strain facing many farmers.
Tariffs made inputs like equipment more expensive. His trade wars have especially damaged the soybean market, and the war in Iran made fertilizer and diesel more costly, though prices are starting to come down. But people in farm country have lost confidence in the president. 1 month into this term, rural voters' net approval of Trump was at plus 22 percentage points in the NPR PBS News Marist poll. This month it was at negative 10, so that's a huge slide.
It's NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben. President Trump's push to overhaul U.S. elections is facing pushback on Capitol Hill. The president says he won't sign any legislation until Congress pass what's known as the Save America Act. NPR's Ashley Lopez reports the measure has little chance of advancing in the Senate.
Trump has said he believes the Save America Act would ensure Republicans never lose another election, as his party faces a potentially bruising election cycle this fall. If passed, the law would prohibit states from registering voters who don't provide proof of citizenship. That includes birth certificates, passports, and some state and tribal IDs. Citizenship is already required to register to vote, and according to experts, non-citizen voting is extremely rare. The law would also require voter ID for ballots cast both in person and by mail. The bill would also force states to hand over sensitive voter data to the Trump administration. It does not currently have the 60 votes needed in the Senate to overcome a filibuster. Ashley Lopez, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Local Venezuelans are stepping up to help after upwards of 600 people were killed and more than 1,500 injured in the two powerful earthquakes that hit the country on Wednesday. Carolina Garcia owns Carolicious Gourmet with locations in Somerville, Cambridge, and Boston. She says her family members back in Venezuela are okay, but she's worried about the others.
They are now without water. Some parts are without electricity, but they are repairing the minor things happen with the earthquake, like a broken glasses.
Garcia says her restaurant is collecting donations for earthquake relief. She says she's worried Venezuela isn't prepared to handle the aftermath of the disaster following the capture of former President Nicolas Maduro by the United States earlier this year. The Worcester School Committee has approved a nearly $624 million budget for the upcoming fiscal year while continuing to hear concerns from parents and educators about screen time and the use of technology in elementary classrooms. The Worcester Guardian reports the committee unanimously approved the budget last night after wrapping up nearly 3 hours of discussion spread across 2 earlier public budget meetings. Sports, the Red Sox-Yankees play Game 2 of their 4-game series tonight. 6 World Cup matches are in the pitch today, 2 at 3, 2 at 8 p.m., and 2 at 11 p.m. But the big one is at Boston Stadium, 3 o'clock, with Norway playing France. Tune in. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include FJC, a foundation of donor-advised funds working to maximize the impact of charitable giving and to create customized philanthropic solutions. Learn more at fjc.org.
Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you very much. And streaming at youtube.com/GBH News Center. Elizabeth Warren is going to be joining us here at the library at noontime. We're going to talk to her about the housing bill that she's been pushing, the bipartisan housing bill to lower costs in housing that Trump is refusing to sign, and other financial issues facing the country. We are not going to be here next week. We're on our July 4th break, but we'll be back live on July 6th in Brighton, and then, as usual, at the library. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there. And by the way, for those of you who, like me, feel like they're going to have a stroke any minute, fabulous music in about 30 minutes or so from a great group called Bubble Wave. That's Trump's favorite group, Bible Wave. Oh, my God. So Trump has spent the past year and a half flooding the zone with shiny new objects for the media to grab hold of, and we admit none shinier to us at the moment than the algae reflecting pool. The good news is we're not going to make jokes about it today. At the end of the show, we're going to talk to a professor emeritus from Tufts in engineering who's going to talk about what the problem is and what the solution may be. So today we want to try and cut through the noise of it all and focus on the potentially deadly impact of Trump's executive orders that have been affirmed by the racist leanings of the Supreme Court. Yesterday, as I'm sure you know, the court largely affirmed Trump's immigration policy, paving the way for the removal of more than 1 million people from the U.S. and the restriction of many others from entering in the first place with asylum claims. So much for give us you're tired and you're poor. Asylum claims and temporary protected status that you're in danger at home, extreme poverty, that sort of thing, are widely seen as a vital form of humanitarian relief for groups of people who would be in trouble at home, enabling them to live and work here legally. The implications of the rulings are massive. And on the asylum case, it garnered a notable dissent from the bench, meaning out loud, which is rare, from Sonia Sotomayor, one of the 3 judges who dissented, saying more people will die. More people will attempt to cross the border illegally, and some will make it, others will not. In a second, I'll tell you what another justice in the minority had to say about the TPS decision. That's Elena Kagan. So, question for you is, what does it say about us? All of this is being done in our name by the President of the United States and by the Supreme Court. And what are we going to do about officially sanctioned racism in the highest places in our government? The number is 877-301-8970. If I can for a second, Margie, let me talk about this TPS case, specifically relating to Haitians and Syrians. By the way, we have the 3rd largest Haitian diaspora in Massachusetts. Yep. There are a lot of Haitian Americans, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so many of it taking to the streets to cheer for the soccer team.
So in any case, if the majority of the Supreme Court had decided that racial discrimination was a motivating factor for Trump in this TPS executive order, they would have had to conclude that it violated the Equal Protection Clause in the Constitution. Alito, who wrote the opinion, not shockingly, ignored every racist comment that Trump has made. Elena Kagan, writing for the minority, did not. Here is how she quoted Trump. These are all verbatim. You know, of course, the thing about Haitians in Ohio eating their pets. Haitians probably have AIDS. Haiti is an S-hole country. Haitians are filthy, dirty, and disgusting. This is all from the President of the United States. Haitian immigration is a death wish for our country, and Haitians are, quote, poisoning blood of our nation. And for those who are not historians, that's the exact same language used by white supremacists, including Adolf Hitler. That is what Alito ignored and what Kagan did not ignore And the Supreme Court, 6 votes to 3, like all the major decisions yesterday, determined that racism from this incredibly racist chief executive was not a factor in his decision to rescind temporary protected status. It is a dark day for this country.
Our number is 877-301-8970 if you'd like to call. There are some Republicans, including Mike DeWine, the governor in Ohio, and Mike Lawler, the congressman from New York, both Republicans, who are very upset about this because they talk about the impact this is going to have on healthcare. A lot of Haitians working in healthcare, on construction, on all these different trades. They talked to some guy who said he's going to, because now, as of today, it's no longer legal to be working, so people are going to have to lay off workers. And they talked about how he's not going to be able to run his hotel. He's going to have to shut down, 25% of his rooms because of he employs that many Haitians. But I just want to contrast this to the way the Trump administration is treating people who come here from South Africa who are white. And he's kind of created this baloney story about this false narrative about this crusade of black farmers attacking all these white farmers, and it's been debunked by many people. But in any case, in the coming weeks, this is from the New York Times, the United States plans to provide a welcome gift to white South African refugees. They're going to get, coming over the border, they're going to get an Android tablet, an American flag, copies of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, a packet of literature that kind of lies about America, a Trump-approved view of American and South African history that criticizes racial equity, criticizes civil rights laws, and promotes claims of discrimination against white people. The bag also includes a commission that Trump wanted done during his first term, downplaying the role of slavery in the country's founding, and a children's book accusing South Africa's government of favoring the black population. I mean, those are white South Africans coming over, getting this special treatment. I don't think people coming from anyplace else got it from Haiti or from Syria.
If they're coming from Norway, they can get it too. Remember when he said that line? He says, why don't we get more people from Norway and Sweden?
Yeah.
Let me read a couple of texts. Anonymous texter. All I can say is, capital letters, this is not who we are. Well, I would say, with all due respect, it is exactly who we are. We become a selfish and cruel country, and I am deeply, deeply ashamed. Another anonymous texter. I work as a hospice volunteer with my dog in many facilities in the western suburbs. Good luck filling all the positions for helpers when all the Haitians leave. They are wonderful, patient, caring, loving people who take care of our needy seniors. This court and country, I would add, should be ashamed. 877-301-897. Can I tell you something? We discussed this in passing. Actually, not in passing. At the top of the show, coincidentally, yesterday before these rulings. James Carville, one of his rants, the former advisor to Clinton, big Democratic Party thinker kind of guy, a little nutty, said on one of his posts about a month ago, I mentioned this, that if a candidate does not, for any office, does not support expansion of the Supreme Court, then you shouldn't vote for him or her or them. And I have to say, if there was ever a day where what Carville is saying is correct, it was yesterday and after. That's the only hope, because as people know, a lifelong tenure, and the feeling is, which is not just ours, that if Trump maintains a majority in the Senate, that Alito and Thomas will be convinced to resign, and there'll be 40-year-old Alito and Thomases who will conserve there for, 45 years?
And one more thing before we get to the calls. Again, the number is 877-301-8970. One of the texters is pointing out that TPS is temporary by definition and has ever been terminated in the past. I'm not sure about the past, but I do know the reason it hadn't been considered terminated for Haiti is because not only did they have the assassination of their leader back, I think it's 2001, it's been like gang infested and very dangerous since then. They had the terrible earthquake in 2010, incredible crime there, and it's a dangerous, very dangerous country. And not to mention really poor countries. So the argument is that the country's not recovered enough. So the definition of the reason they're here has not changed.
Well, it's not just Haiti. On that list of 17 countries
Yep.
where we once to rescind TPS, I think now it's down to 13 or whatever it is, a significant number, I'm not sure precisely how many, the State Department has deemed to be too dangerous for an American to travel to under any circumstance.
Right, and they include places like Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Nicaragua, Honduras, Venezuela, Ukraine. So that means Ukrainian people
because
are gonna
Zelensky didn't thank him enough.
sent
That is,
back
I mean,
to Ukraine.
let's take some calls. Aaron, you're in the library? Okay. Don't be too loud when you're speaking. Hi, Aaron. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Sure.
This is no big surprise. You have to understand that for Trump and for these Supreme Court justices, there are three types of people. There are rich white Americans, there are other white Americans, and then there's everybody else. And everybody else really isn't human. So if you dehumanize people enough, you can do anything you like to them. The problem is there used to be a concept of noblesse oblige. If you were rich, if you were powerful, you had an obligation to use that riches and power to help other less fortunate people. These people have turned it on their heads. If you're rich and powerful, it's because you deserve it, and other people who are not rich and not powerful don't deserve it because they didn't merit getting it in the first place. And, you know, what do you do about it? You have to expand the Supreme Court, and you have to do everything you can to win the next election and the election after that in the hope that something can stand in Trump's way.
Aaron, that was a spectacular. That was a great call.
Well,
Thank you.
We're kind of run by the oligarchs now. I mean, how many people in Trump's cabinet are really loaded, millionaires and billionaires? I mean, Howard Lutnick.
Well, you know what? You saw the job description thing. You saw the thing that was leaked out to some of the Washington Post. You either have to be a billionaire or a sexual abuser to be in the cabinet.
Well,
one of the two.
Speaking of people that have links to Epstein, one of them is Howard Lutnick, and I guess Trump has had some ups and downs with him. And then Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan book reported that Lutnick gave $25 million of his own money to the Trump Library, and I guess
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until I saw that.
Regime Change is the name of the book.
Regime Change, yeah. It's somebody said it's like a real page turner.
Can I say one more thing? Speaking to what Aaron said about majorities and that sort of thing, following Elizabeth Warren at noon, we're going to be joined by a guy who just got a great honor from Spain, former ambassador of Spain, huge, prolific Democratic fundraiser, Alan Solomont, who has visited with every single major Democratic candidate who is either fighting to hold a Democratic seat or to flip a Republican seat. He's going to talk to us about those races at about 12:30. Sarah and Acton, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
We can, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, second-time caller. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I have to say, I was starting to feel a little bit better about how we're being perceived around the world with the way the World Cup, we've been treating people so nicely. And then yesterday rolls around. I cannot believe it. But the kicker of this is that Amy Coney Barrett, she has 2 children from Haiti.
Yeah.
That is a
great point.
Wish we had thought of that.
Great
that
point.
is a fabulous point.
Yeah, you'd think she would understand better than most what the conditions down there, because she's obviously been there.
Sarah, that's a great point.
Stephen Miller is obviously behind this. It's just awful. I'm so ashamed.
Well, I'm with you. Sarah, that was a great point. I'm glad you made it. Thanks for your call. 877-301-8970.
Stephen Miller is ecstatic today. He says he's been trying to get this done for 10 years, and he's finally made it.
Paul in Somerville writes, I'm a liberal, but the TPS, Temporary Protected Status Law, gives the executive branch unchecked authority to designate, extend, or terminate protections for foreign nationals. The remedy is for Congress to change law. The latter part is true, but you're wrong about the top, Paul. If the court had determined that the motivation for Trump in the executive order was racial animus, which it clearly was, they would have been required to determine that he was violating, as I said, the Equal Protection Clause, and as a result, his TPS actions would have been deemed unconstitutional. So even without a congressional act, a court that was not in the pocket of Donald Trump, who, by the way, and speaking of racism, we had the Voting Rights Act gutting by the same court a few weeks ago. We had, was it 2 days ago? They gave no remedy. There was an order that prison officials in Louisiana could not cut the dreadlocks of a Rastafarian who had religious beliefs. The prison official knew that there was such an order, violated, cut the guy's hair. And you know what the Supreme Court ruled?
It's okay.
There is no remedy.
Yeah,
Not only is there okay, there is no remedy.
No
you
remedy.
can't sue the state. You can't sue the guard. You can't do
well,
anything.
don't forget Pete Hegseth in the military. If you are a woman or a black guy that has given heroic service to this country for like 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and you're not down with what Trump is doing, you're out. I mean, that general that they're trying to push out is a heroic guy. Let's go to Marcia in Winchester. Hi, thank you for calling.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi. I love your show. So
Thanks.
I have two comments. First
Please.
of all, I would not expand the Supreme Court. Instead, for all federally appointed judges, I would institute term limits and age limits so that somebody serves for 20 or 25 years and or age 75, whichever comes first, and then they're off the court. That's that. As to the court's decision yesterday, it is quite clear that this nation, led by Stephen Miller and the white nationalist movement, is engaged in ethnic cleansing. Stephen Miller, in particular, has been a racist and a bigot since he was a teenager. He is supported in this goal by people like Russell Vought, who's the head of the Office of Management and Budget, who nobody talks about. The guy does whatever he wants, gets no attention. These two people, along with J.D., Hegseth, and whoever else you can think of, are fascists, and they want ethnic cleansing in this country, and that is what is going on.
Marcia, thanks for the call. Marcia, can I just not correct, but I've said this a lot of times, but we spoke to Nancy Gertner, Judge Gertner, and Larry Tribe, Harvard professor, law school emeritus, right after they had served on the presidential commission on the future of the Supreme Court a couple of years ago under Joe Biden. They both went into that commission supporting what you support, term limits, and they both came out saying the top priority should be instead expansion of the court. And the reason was not because one was preferable. The reason is they believe expansion of the court can be done by an act of Congress alone, which has been done many times in our history, and term limits must only be done by amending the United States Constitution, which is a perilous route. So other than that, I'm totally with you. Marcia, thanks for an excellent call. We appreciate it. By the way, John in Somerset says, SCOTUS, Supreme Court should rename itself Trump's law firm, Paul, Weiss, and Alito. I think that is actually a fine. That's Marjorie, if you don't remember, thought Paul Weiss was going to be on our show.
Yeah, I thought Paul Weiss was a person, but in fact, it's not a person.
No, it's not.
And
it was several persons.
Yeah, it was several persons. And I think they're all deceased at this point anyway. We have to have their ghosts come in. Carol on Cape Cod, thank you for calling.
Hello, Carol.
Hi. I'm from Cape Cod, and I used to work with the Haitian community for more than a decade.
Oh.
And I'm really upset, of course, about ending the TPS for Haitians and Syrians. And I wanted to just say something about the double standard you've been talking about. You know, Trump has dismantled the refugee program practically, yet 100,000 or more Ukrainians, and I think they deserve it, have been granted TPS, and another 250,000 in parole in the United States. Other countries have taken, over 1 million. But nobody kind of talks about that, right? And so I think the Haitians have always gotten not a fair shake. Even I worked with the Haitian community back in the 80s and 90s. And, even then, Cubans would take the plane, but Haitians were being turned around on boats, the Coast Guard. So they've always had a hard time of it. And finally, we gave them some protective status after the earthquake. And then with the continuing issues. The other thing is, that, as you said, they work in healthcare. They work in nursing homes. I did contact tracing during COVID, and Haitians were taking care of our elders all through that period.
Well,
so
Carol, on
really
that note,
disturbing.
we've had this discussion in the past. The Trump's immigration policies, and I use the term loosely, are sadistic, but they're also horrible for the economy. And Marjorie and I talk a lot about why business leaders, for example, have not stood up in unison because they're losing workers, farmers, etc. Let's hope healthcare leaders, nursing home leaders use the next couple of days to do exactly what they should, say that not only are these people great workers and great neighbors, but they're critical to the healthcare industry in this country. Carol, thanks for the call.
You know, Carol is right, too. I misspoke about Ukraine. That was exempted from this list, but the ones that are on the list are Afghanistan, Burma, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. Not a lot of blue-eyed blondes in those countries.
Well, I mean, I know some people are made uncomfortable when you say the President of the United States and a majority of the court are racist. Is that an unfair, is that a radical description of the behaviors, the actions of the 6-member majority and the President of the United States? No, it's what they do.
What about their obsession with DEI, their obsession with, about Trump? People talk about Trump derangement syndrome. Trump has Obama derangement syndrome. He's, obsessed with him. He was obsessed with him way back when he started saying he wasn't born in the United States of America. Remember the birth certificate fiasco?
I do indeed.
Laurel from Dedham, thank you for calling.
Hi, Laurel.
Hi there. I have to say that this is news about Trump finally gets me physically sick to my stomach. I think of familiar faces that are so great, the Haitian faces. So how can the people speak, and how can we be visible right away in a response? Do we gather at deportation sites? Do we go to the Capitol? We need to do all a bumper sticker of "We love Haitians" or fight ethnic cleansing. We need to be visible and auditorily heard. I don't know what else to do.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Laura, for starters, we're going to ask Elizabeth Warren that very question at noon. We're going to ask Alan Solomont, former treasurer of the Democratic National Committee, that question at 12:30. So stick around. That is the critical question. Assuming people don't want that to be who we are, then we have to do something to make it not who we are. And we'll try to unravel that.
This
Laurel,
is huge. This is a death sentence for many people.
Well, it surely is. Laurel, thanks.
What the other thing is, I think, Trump has essentially closed down the border. People are not coming over the border, and Biden goofed. I would think a lot of people would think by letting too many people come over the border. But I think that's what people wanted. They wanted people. They didn't want people that had been here for 15 years, working and having their kids go to school and paying taxes, to be yanked out of their homes and shipped, back to.
They wanted the most violent offenders.
Yes.
That's what he campaigned on.
The bad hombres.
That was his expression.
And that's not what happened. And I think Stephen Miller's a very weird guy, if you ask me, and I don't think he cares whether they're bad hombres or 5-year-old kids.
Well, as long as they're not white, they're in the same category. By the way, Anonymous Texter says, please remember Syrians are also affected by this order. The case was about Haitians and Syrians, but the impact goes well beyond. It goes to all 13 of those countries.
Afghanistan, Burma, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen.
Right, even though the only 2 cases that were before the court were about Syrians and Haitians, it has broad impact and really harmful, potentially deadly impact.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to discuss this with Senator Warren, too.
Yeah, thank you very much for your calls and your texts. After this quick break, it's our media analysis segment, Press Play, with GBH's Adam Reilly and Callie Crossley. We're going to talk about the continuing mess at CBS and another mess at ABC. Trump's going after them, too. The View and ABC in general is fighting back against the president trying to tell The View and other things at ABC what they have to put on the air. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This weekend, dig into something new on GBH 89.7. From landscaping...
most of my succulents that I overwinter in a southern window, I water them once a week.
...to DIY excellence.
Paint and primer combo, to me, is sort of like, the low-fat food craze. This is just silly branding.
The Garden Lady and This Old House Radio Hour. Saturdays starting at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering dynamic short programs tailored for mid-career professionals looking to build expertise in innovation, leadership, and technology. Details at executive.mit.edu. And Burton's Grill and Bar, offering catering for family gatherings and corporate events with gluten-free and food allergy-friendly options. Orders available for takeout and delivery in Greater Boston. burtonsgrill.com.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Senator Warren is here at 12:05 in person. We have Bubble Wave playing music before, which is going to be great. We're on tape all next week for July 4th break. We are back live on July 6th. Time now for a media analysis segment, Press Play. Today joined by GBH's own Adam Reilly and Callie Crossley. Callie's the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can watch that Sunday night. Listen to that Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6, and on the Culture Show's Week in Review every Friday at the library, like today. Adam Reilly's political reporter at GBH used to write the great Don't Quote Me media column for the late, great Alternative Weekly, the Boston Phoenix. Hello to both of you. Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Great to
Thank
see
you
you.
very much for coming in. So people may have heard about Paramount taking over CBS, and a stunning ratings collapse is the way the Daily Beast describes what's going on over there with the evening news, and apparently now it's impacted the morning news over there as well. So how are the Ellisons and Barry Weiss doing, Callie?
Not very well, and you could actually see the desperation if you're a regular watcher, and I am. That was my morning show of choice, and I've been very whipped up to see that they keep trotting out everybody they can trot out to I guess, maybe make some connection with somebody. The last person they trotted out was Elizabeth Hasselbeck from The View, and she didn't really have a role, so they kind of stuck her in at various places during the show. It was very odd. Now, if you want the woman to be on the show, give her, a space, and that made more sense. She was sort of popping in and out. Anyway, my point is that regular viewers would like to know what's going on and not see this every 2 seconds somebody new is in a chair, and some of the people who have been there have been pushed aside. So I am not surprised that they have dropped the ratings.
Adam, we just like at the end of this first segment, when people say, well, what can we do? Look at what Jimmy Kimmel, most of us thought was never going back on the air.
Right.
A lot of people wrote notes saying we're never going to shop at your sponsors anymore. CBS Morning Show ratings are dropping. People are speaking with their eyes. Mm-hmm. The LA Times, owned by another Trumpster, losing subscriptions like crazy, like the Washington Post is. This is sort of the ultimate proof that there is people power when it comes to media choices, no?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's, if you don't like the direction that people are taking these publications in, if you don't like what Jeff Bezos is doing at the Washington Post or what's happening at 60 Minutes, you don't watch, and those you end up with concrete numbers no one can take issue with, and a message is sent very loudly and clearly. I think you're right.
Are you surprised? I have to say, I'm surprised. I'm both surprised, this is going to sound horrible, that people took action as widely as they did in such huge numbers, but that it's having this kind of... the LA Times guy's another billionaire, a la Bezos.
Trump, they were going Trump.
I said, they're all trumped up, yeah.
Yeah, trumped up.
Yeah, does that surprise you, or you're...
It doesn't surprise me that
Two things. One, that people acted on their feelings in that sort of way, and two, that it's had the kind of impact on the owners like it has.
It doesn't surprise me. Thinking of the LA Times case, you remember that they killed their endorsement of Kamala Harris. Or
right. Should have said that, right.
The owner of the LA Times, Patrick Soon-Shiong, killed the endorsement. And the editor of the editorial page at the time did exactly what you are always saying people should do. She quit. Mm. And she said it's really important to draw attention to what's going on here. So there's been so much attention paid. He introduced those weird AI double checks of the articles created by his own journalist to try to show you any bias that was in those articles. So it doesn't surprise me that he is now struggling to pay the bills.
And behind the scenes, we should say also, not just the opinion editor quit. I know personally a number of really fine journalists with highly credentialed who walked away.
Yeah, what just kind of seems like an odd business stance at this point with Trump's ratings. His approval ratings are down in the high 30s or mid 30s, depending on where you look. It doesn't feel like a smart business move when the country's against the guy to go get all trumped up. But anyway, let's move on to ABC. They're fighting back. Local stations are getting a message. The View's getting a message from the Trump administration, his FCC, about whom they want to put on the show and how they want to organize it. And they're running these ads.
We have an ad here, by the way. The FCC is saying you have an equal time obligation. They're saying in response, we're a news show. We don't. Here is this new campaign running on ABC itself. Joy Behar is the first voice you'll hear.
I had this idea for a show. Different women, different points of view.
The View has welcomed your favorite guests and covered the issues you care about for nearly 30 years. Now, the FCC wants to control who is allowed to appear on the show. Viewers, use your voice. Scan this QR code. You have until July 6th.
That may have been Barbara Walters. My apologies. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. So, I mean, this is, some people think this is dangerous. You should sort of duck your, well, there's a school of thought that when Trump is after you, you duck your head. I mean, we're not in that school of thought, and neither are they. What do you think of this strategy?
Well, they've already been bit and they paid back, right?
$16 million, that's right.
They're ostensibly under the post already been bit by the Trump administration era. So they got, to some degree, nothing to lose. They're a little bit like Harvard, I guess. They come from Harvard, and they'll just say, well, okay, we're going to fight. We should have done this on the first go-round, and maybe we're standing up now and let people know, have a little bit of understanding of what actually is happening. Because, you know, the rest of us watching the show, we might hear something. We don't really know.
Well, you just mentioned Elizabeth Hasselbeck. I think she was she was a conservative, right? And she used to be on The View.
Yeah, she still is.
And the woman that used to be Trump's, the Trump first administration, she's on The View. So it's not like they don't have conservatives on The View right now.
The guy's, what's his name? The FCC head, Brendan Carr.
Brendan
Carr is just upset in general about who they have on the show. And it's his personal response. I mean, when you get Ted Cruz saying the kinds of comments that Brendan Carr is making, both of the same party, both supporting Trump, saying his comments are dangerous, we can understand that he's way out of line. So I don't blame them for doing a public campaign.
I give them a lot of credit for doing the public campaign. I'm not sure. I think it's debatable whether or not they are, in fact, a bona fide news program. Not to get too down in the weeds, but if that's the defense for why equal time doesn't apply to them, I don't know if I'm convinced that.
What is a news program in your estimation? Assuming you were the chair of the FCC, which probably will not be happening anytime soon, but should it happen,
people have to worry about that. But
how do you describe what a news program is?
I think of a news program as one that attempts to show a discussion of as many topics as possible in as great depth as possible, showing as many sides of the issues that it's presenting as possible. I think the nightly news shows fit the bill. I think something like 60 Minutes fits the bill. The View is, and I have no problem with advocacy journalism. I used to work at a place that did advocacy journalism. But I feel like The View ventures into advocacy journalism rather than straight news. That's just, again, you may disagree.
I do disagree. Well, I think I disagree because we do advocacy journalism, but every single person with whom we disagree, whether it's the head of the BSO, the governors running, the Republicans running for a governor of different worldviews, every single one we invite, I would say, despite our advocacy on some issues, that provides, I don't mean cover in a strategic way, but it makes us, and I think The View, which doesn't shy away from asking, they had J.D. Vance on a couple of days ago, last week or the week before. I think that gets them covered, but obviously, more importantly, Brendan Carr does not. We're talking to Adam Reilly and Callie Crossley.
So let's talk about Margaret Sullivan. This is Jim's favorite topic. Do you want to? Yeah, you want to?
I'll do this. We are big fans of Margaret Sullivan, who, for those who don't know, used to work at the Post and used to work in the New York Times. And basically, her basic message, which we totally agree with, is you got to say what it is when you're talking about Trump. No euphemisms, no whatever. This is only anecdotal, but I told Marjorie this a couple of weeks ago. When Trump said for the first time that Iran has agreed to monitors of their nuclear their nuclear facilities, the headline in the New York Times said, I'm paraphrasing, Trump says Iran agrees to nuclear inspections, same as as the Obama agreement. Meaning, it's not an editorial statement, it's a factual statement, but gives you a much fuller picture and contextual picture than a lot of these places had done in the past. And I spent the next day looking at headlines, looking at stories. It seems like the media is bought in to the not all, but a lot of the mainstream media is bought into the Margaret Sullivan, tell the truth, the whole story kind of thing. Do you agree with that or no?
I think that there was a pivotal turning point when we went from falsehood to lie.
I agree with that totally.
So now we're post-falsehood. I mean, you still hear it a little bit. And typically, I think, Adam, you would agree, it's like without evidence, which is not the same thing as lie. I mean,
Right.
it is, but it's not. You know?
Right.
So I think once reporters got to the point where we're just going to have to use that language that people understand, then there's been more of an effort to be very clear, I think, with exactly what do we mean. What do we mean when we say this, so that the headlines and the body of the reporting are aligned.
Before you weigh in, can I give you another example? Every single time Trump changes what his goals are in the Iranian war, virtually every responsible piece of journalism, TV, radio, print, says, well, here's what he said 3 months ago was his goal. And they don't necessarily say he's lying, he's misrepresenting. Here's where he was then, here's what he's saying. I think that's really valuable stuff, no?
I think it's valuable. It only took us how long? I got to count on my fingers.
6 years almost.
6 years. I mean, going back to, we got to go back to 2016 in his first run, right? So it took us a long time, but I do think that there's less sort of hand-wringing consternation about calling something that comes out of his mouth a lie, because, I mean, he's primed us to make the change. He lies all the time.
I think there's
so
also, just to add to what you're saying, there's more of an effort to give clear examples. So, for example, CBS's Ed O'Keefe reporting on the pool. The president says it's vandalism. The president says there's a gash in the pool. Ed O'Keefe walked the whole pool. I'm looking for the gash. I don't see the gash. And he wasn't mean about it. He wasn't nasty or snarky. He just said there's no gash. And he said, I've asked all the appropriate people, the tourism, the whoever, the Justice Department, whoever's supposed to report on this, give me the evidence of the gash so I can show it.
And that's great, because we've talked before, I think, about how fact-checking tends not to stick with people. You know, it doesn't necessarily change your mind.
That's right.
But that's a fact-check in real time, done in a memorable way, which people are going to remember.
I'm totally with you.
I'm really
Reilly and Callie Crossley.
I'm really down on the algae story.
Oh, really, Marjorie? I don't think the listeners knew that.
Okay, so let's talk about this case, this horrific case out of Texas, where a bunch of anti-ICE people went out, and they went to an ICE detention center. They vandalized it. They spray-painted graffiti on a guard shed in a car. They damaged surveillance cameras. One of them shot a police officer in the neck. The cop survived it, but it was a violent attack against this ICE thing. But these people got up to 100 years in prison sentences, including one of them. I think that person got 30 years. All they do is move their wasn't even there for the demonstration, move their booklets, like after the demonstration.
A box of magazines. Yes.
Yeah, a box of magazines. And this dwarfs, I mean, the people of January 6th that actually almost killed cops got nothing like this.
22 years was the longest sentence.
Yeah, and that was the leader of the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
This is incredible. These people have paid from 50 years in jail, 60 years in jail.
100 years in jail.
What's the stated policy goal, right, of the Trump administration? To crack down on left-wing terrorism, as they would put it, left-wing crime. So they've made no secret about what they want to do. I think this is very much a kind of a test case to see how far they can push that. Okay, what can that mean in practice when you're trying to look for maximum sentences? And it is ominous. In particular, Marjorie, as you said, for the guy who wasn't there at the time this all went down and moves a box of magazines. Yeah, it's harder to be sympathetic for the man who shot a police officer in the.
And they said they weren't with Antifa. They said they and the co-defendants.
Under oath.
Yeah, under oath.
Yeah.
But I wonder if this has got to do with the president's national security memo number 7. And this, I was reading from this New York Times story, which orders a whole of government approach to going after anti-fascist groups, expanding the definition of domestic terrorism to include stuff that's usually protected by the First Amendment. Among them, anti-capitalism, extremism on migration, race, and gender, or hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality.
So about half the country.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So if you are hostile toward people who are anti-gay marriage or anti-abortion, does that make you a terrorist?
Under the way that they're explaining it, yes.
I mean, This is nuts.
I would just note that in this article, they talked about these people were present. We're not talking about the guy who shot. We're talking about the other people who were present and wearing black at a protest, and that was considered terrorist activity. I mean, we have to talk about this is way out of line, and we haven't even gotten to what's First Amendment rights of protest and all of that. I think what's important in these stories is that if we hear the numbers of what they've been accused of and the years that they are facing is not enough. You really have to pair that with what was the action so you have an understanding of what we're talking about.
Quickly.
The precedent's really ominous. I was somewhat reassured, perversely, to see that they've only indicted, I think, 15 people from Minneapolis and St. Paul for the resistance to ISIS surge.
Oh, yeah.
Because the behavior that they were indicted for is behavior that so many people there, tens of thousands of people were engaged in. So I took some comfort, maybe I shouldn't.
But it's a warning shot.
It is a warning shot.
You killed 2 people in Minnesota. You sentence people to 30 years for a protest that they're not even at. And the message is you may die or you may spend the rest of your life in prison if you decide to exercise your First Amendment rights. I mean, it's not just alleged terrorism they're concerned about. It's stifling people's rights of
and that regime
protest.
change book reports that right after Alex Preddy and Renego were killed, that J.G. Vance thought it would be good. The Insurrection Act should be taken out of the
Good to see you both.
Anyway, Callie Crossley is host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can catch Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6 and on the Culture Show's Week in Review every Friday right here at the library. Adam Reilly's a political reporter at GBH and used to write the Don't Quote Me media column for the late, great Boston Phoenix. Thank you so much, you guys. Coming up after this quick break, you don't want to miss this. Live Music Friday with Bubba Wave. They are fantastic. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, remembering Clive Davis, the music industry titan with a golden ear, a star maker who helped shape American music from Janis Joplin to Bruce Springsteen to Whitney Houston. Then President Trump ran on draining the swamp. Instead, his blue reflecting pool has become one. A patriotic showpiece turned swampy saga of algae, blame, and spectacle. That and more on The Culture Show's Week in Review today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And M&M Skylights, located in Stoneham, installing and servicing the full range of Velux skylights that can help bring air and more natural light into homes. Skylight consultations can be scheduled at mmskylights.com. And Maine Maritime Museum, offering oyster-tasting cruises throughout the summer. Visitors can learn about aquaculture from Maine's oyster farmers and experience freshly shucked oysters. MaineMaritimeMuseum.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. She's Marjorie Egan. I'm Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Senator Elizabeth Warren will be here in person in about 15 minutes. We'll be on tape next week for the July 4th break. We're back on the 6th. Thank God for this. It's time for another edition of Live Music Friday. Today's Friday uplift comes to us from the Boston-based neo-reggae band Bubble Wave, which they self-describe as a movement, an artistic collaboration beyond any one sound, genre, or medium. Their long-term vision is to expand beyond live music to create multi-sensory experiences. They're going to do that for us in a moment, we hope. They'll be performing on July 11th at Levitate Backyard in Marshfield. For more info, go to Instagram at @bubblewave_music. A couple of band members, Eric Folter and Masataka Yamamoto, will join us at the interview desk in a couple of minutes. But first, let's hear some music. First up, Babylon. Welcome to you all.
time to talk to each other, but we make it stick. No time to talk for another, so we pray and think. All as we look in the pot, don't have to make it stick. No wonder we're falling apart, it's harder to stand and try. Now I'm talking to myself, it's harder to stand and try. We don't wanna try, but we wonder why. It's all 'cause Babylon, city of confusion. Babylon. Shine your light or it may go out. If you don't try, you should try. Don't waste all that you've got, 'cause you won't try. You should try. We don't want Babylon, a city of confusion. Babylon, we don't care where you come from. Babylon, yeah, 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 we don't want confusion. Yeah, 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 yeah. So Babylon, yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't care where you come from. Yeah, 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 yeah. Whoa, Babylon, city of confusion. Babylon, we don't care where you come from. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's fabulous. Babylon. A couple of you are joining us, right? Come on up. That was fabulous. That is Bubble Wave. You can
And
check.
they're going to be on July 11th at the Levitate Backyard in Marshfield. You want to get more info, go to Instagram at bubblewave_music.
Erica and Mustaka, that was fabulous. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Before we talk to you guys a little bit more, you want to tell us who else is in the band?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Eric B. Cifuentes on drums. We have Jeff Deehan, Edmond on vocals. I play bass, of course, Masa on keys.
You guys are great.
Thank you.
So this is another Berkeley thing? Is that how you all came together?
Well, Masa and I were at Berkeley around the same time. We definitely all met through that network, you know, playing around Boston, yeah.
And then we've been playing together for years.
4 years.
I mean, longer times, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how would you describe the band? It's not just reggae. It's like beyond that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is it?
We call neo-reggae. Like we wanted to make something like bass reggae music, but we wanted a mix of R&B, jazz, soul, funk.
Yeah, and you're working in photographers and videographers at this. I mean, this is not just like a listening to music experience.
Yeah, there are so many talented artists in Boston, so we wanted to collaborate, like not just musicians, different kinds of artists.
Are you wearing corduroy?
I am, yeah.
You know it's like 85 degrees?
Yeah, well, you keep it.
Anybody tell you that or what?
You keep it nice in the studio, though. It's a
You
nice
do?
temperature, yeah.
You're not going to go outside later?
Yeah,
or what?
I will have to at some
You'll
point.
wait till
yeah.
sundown.
Yeah.
What is this? We went to your website. We're reading a lot about you guys. And the thing I said in the lead, you want to see this as a movement. What does that mean? What are you trying to do with this? Let me start with you, Eric. Beyond just playing just incredibly beautiful music, what's the goal?
Thank you. Yeah, so we all have different, there's so many different cultural and musical backgrounds in the band. We try to draw on that. Boston as a whole, it's just because of the world-class institutions, the infrastructure of the music scene is really here and really cool. There's a lot to draw from there. So we're trying to be, not just to the roots of reggae and R&B, but really draw from all the different cultures and see what we can bring into the style of music that we've come up with.
You didn't hear that diversity is illegal in this country
Yeah,
now?
right.
You missed that? You missed that message?
I know, yeah.
But you know what? Almost the reason I mentioned Berkeley at the beginning of talking to you guys is because almost every time we have people on here, they went to Berkeley or they're hanging out at Berkeley or the band members are from Berkeley. And I wonder why, because in one of these papers I read in preparation to talking to you, there was some talk there weren't that many great outlets for music in Boston, which seems like there should be with this huge Berkeley. I mean, can't Berkeley open up a few more auditoriums for music, or what's the deal?
Yeah, they kind of have. I mean, what it is we need some help. I think the artists need some help from Bostonians and people who are just living here, whether it's short-term or long-term. People just to come out and support as you would a farmer's market or something like that. It's a little tough to find the opportunities for that.
Let me quote. We do this almost all the time, but we'll do it again because we loved him and everything he stood for. Brian O'Donovan, our late great colleague, used to say live music is where it's at. I was listening to you guys as everything I could find online last night. It was great.
Thank you.
As great as it was nothing like watching you play. I mean, and that's not to disparage, recordings.
Right.
It's just when you see live music and get to watch the players and what they do with their music and how they relate to each other, it's a whole different experience, no? I mean, do you buy that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, live, right? Huge.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you go to live music other than playing yourself? You do? What kind of stuff do you like?
I like R&B, jazz, also hip-hop. I mean, any different kinds of music.
And do you find a broad cross-section in Boston?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
So, Eric, you just mentioned all the different cultures in your band. Got a bunch of World Cup fans here or not?
Of course.
Has this been a big
I think,
big time for the World Cup?
Yeah, I think 3/4 of the band, everyone but me, knows what's going on. I think, in the World Cup,
What's your problem?
Yeah, I don't know.
You're honest. That's the difference.
Exactly right. Yeah, I can't
People
keep
in
up.
corduroy don't get into the World Cup, Jim. I think that's the answer there.
That's it.
Yeah.
So what's the goal here with you guys? You said you've been together a bunch of years. What's the short-term goal other than the immediate concerts? I mean, what's the path from here to where?
I mean, not the short term actually. I wanted to make kind of long term. We wanted to make a story. I love playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
I love their sound. And then we've been playing together for so long. So I want to make a story and I want to share our music with people.
Well, we
And you've got a new album coming out too. You've got the Bubble Wave is the first album, right?
Yes.
And then there's going to be a new album. When is that?
We don't have a date yet. We're still
working
in
on
the
it.
studio,
Okay.
still working
so
on it.
But right now people can get Bubble Wave, the EP. Okay.
I think you should tell the other three guys to spend a little less time on the World Cup and a little bit more on the album.
We need to get in the
and maybe
studio.
we'll be in a little bit better shape. You know what I'm talking about? Okay,
Right.
fine.
Okay.
What are you playing this time?
I'm sorry, what
are you going to play this time?
Oh, we're going to play If You Go and Leave. It's one of our singles from the last EP.
Okay.
Does everybody like each other? I'm always curious when I'm watching a live band with four people, and I was watching how you occasionally looked at each other and how you relate. Does everybody like each other? Tell the truth. Raise your right hand. Do everybody like each other?
Yeah,
They
yes.
do?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, we love each other.
That is unconvincing. Let me tell you. You guys like the other guys? A little bit. There's one honest man in this band.
Okay, this is Bubble Wave. You're going to hear their If You're Gonna Leave, and they are performing at the July 11th, the Levitate Backyard in Marshfield. You want to get more information, go to Instagram at @bubblewave_music. We are going to hear...
Masa and Eric, you can go back. Put your headphones down. You can rejoin your bandmates while Marjorie's describing what you're doing.
And I'll tell it one more time.
Do it
July
another time.
11th, Levitate Backyard in Marshfield. You want to get information? Instagram at bubblewave_music, and you can go see this gang up there at the Levitate Backyard in Marshfield. Here's If You're Gonna Leave.
Welcome back, gentlemen.
Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Early this morning, I woke up to an empty bed. You weren't there, my darling. Where were you? All night long I dreamt of you. All night long you said my name in the dark. And when you kiss me before you leave, it's like a warning right before I rendezvous. I need you to give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Yeah, 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 yeah. Give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Give me a warning. Give me, baby, give me love. Give me a warning when you wake up in the morning. Give me a warning when you're coming, when you're going. Give me a warning. You know how I like it, baby. Give me a warning. So you got work today. Give them a warning. Darling, I just need your love. Give me a warning. Tease me, baby, give me some. Give me a warning. One more time before you leave, I need you to give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Warning shots like thunder when you kiss me, spread through me. All day, all night, I've been thinking how your love sets me free. His wings, so give me a warning. Just kiss me before you leave, girl. So give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Give me a warning. Give me a warning, love. Give me a warning when you leave me. Give me a warning. Give me a warning, love. Give me a warning, baby, if you know what I mean. So we say, give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Everybody say, come on. Give me a warning if you're gonna leave me, girl. If you're gonna leave me, girl, in the morning. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you so much, Jim and Marjorie. Appreciate you so much.
Bubble Wave.
We have been listening to Boston-based neo-reggae band Bubble Wave. They are fantastic. They're going to be performing July 11th at the Levitate Backyard in Marshfield. For more info, go to Instagram at bubblewave_music. Thank you very much. You guys were great.
They were great.
We say goodbye to those of you listening at 8 p.m. Elizabeth Warren is next here in Boston.
Coming up, you'll hear something on GBH News that just wouldn't be possible without listener support. So, while you're listening, consider pitching in $10 or $20 a month as a GBH sustainer and help make it all happen. Give at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Gentle Giant Moving and Storage Company, offering local, long-distance office and piano moving with 23 locations throughout New England and across the country. More information at gentlegiant.com. And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you. And streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are on tape next week because we're taking our July 4th vacation. We'll be back live on July 6th. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. Today was supposed to be, I don't know, sort of a victory lap for our next guest and her colleagues. She worked for months to bring together a bipartisan coalition of senators and representatives, both parties, as I said, to pass the largest housing affordability bill in decades. But like everything else, whatever goes to the Oval Office goes to die. And at least as of the moment, it has not been signed, but who knows? She'll tell us. Joining us now at the library desk is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, how are you? Senator, thank you very, very, very much for coming in. You're big fans out here, obviously. You know, we're going to get to the housing bill in just a second, but we talked to our listeners earlier about the Supreme Court's decision on temporary protected status. It's going to mean that basically Haitians, and we're the third largest Haitian community in the country, Syrians, other countries are vulnerable now to being deported. What was your reaction to the Supreme Court's action?
So partly it's like, let me get this straight. These are people who followed the law, who were here under the law, who were told they could stay as long as it was dangerous conditions back in their home country, which it certainly is for Haitians. And now one man just gets to turn that around. That's bad enough. But part two, the United States Supreme Court says, now he can do that. He has a lot of power on immigration, but he doesn't get to do it if he's doing it for racial reasons. He doesn't get to do it just because this is a country that's black. You just don't get to do that. And the United States Supreme Court just stands there and says, nope, no racial animus here. I read Elena Kagan's dissent, and I thought her head might explode.
We read excerpts from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really is a big part of what's been happening in our country, and this is just the latest example, is just how many people have to line up and say, up is down, in is out, because the great leader said so. And now we have the United States Supreme Court in the most aggressive way saying he didn't mean it. You notice they never quote what he actually said. They just kind of blur over the whole thing. And that is deeply disturbing. I mean, this is when you have your folks in to talk about oligarchy. But can we do the third part about what this is going to mean?
You may do the third and the fourth part, Senator.
And that is, our Haitian community is part of us here in Massachusetts. This is not like some other. This is us. And these are families that are woven in our families, members of our families. These are the people who are working in our healthcare system in particular, but working in all kinds of jobs around the country. And the idea that we would say we're just going to come through and pluck out you and you and you, after you've been part of who we are and helped us build a stronger, better country, it's not just legally wrong, it is deeply morally wrong. Shame on this president and the Supreme Court that backed him up.
I just have one more question. By the way, if you weren't listening at 11 o'clock and didn't read what Elena Kagan had to say, she quoted Trump verbatim. Haiti's a S-hole country. It's filthy, dirty, disgusting, and most significantly, Haitians are, quote, poisoning the blood of the nation, same language white supremacists and Hitler used. I read a piece a couple of years ago you wrote about expanding the court. We talked to Judge Gertner about it all the time. If Democrats by 2028 control both houses and there's a Democratic president in 2029, is that an agenda item or is that just rhetoric for most of your colleagues?
No, that's an agenda
Not
item.
you, your colleagues.
Look, we get out there and talk about it because that's how you get more people into it. The first time you talk about it, look, the first time I talked with anybody about doing anything to the Supreme Court, I thought my eyelashes would frizzle. You know, I was just like, we don't mess around with the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has messed around with us. And they're the ones who have brought this on. They no longer follow the Constitution of the United States. They no longer can even utter an honest sentence about racism. They have forfeited the kind of trust that we have placed in them. Remember those guys who stood up on Roe versus Wade? Settled law, we're done on that, we're not going back. Oh, we're not going back until we have a majority. And we can flip it over. We just passed the anniversary of the Dodd's opinion on Wednesday. So my view on this is we're going to be the party, the Democrats, who are going to stick to the Constitution. But one thing we know we can do for sure under the Constitution is that we are the ones who determine the size of the Supreme Court. 9 is not a fixed number. The size of the Supreme Court has been changed 7 times. We can go for number 8, and I am ready to do that.
We're talking to Elizabeth Warren. So, Senator, in light of the fact, based upon a phone call, it sounds like the president is your new BFF. I want to ask. I think we can ask you about what's going on in his mind. Do you, Mike Johnson, who was humiliated or should have been humiliated the other day when he's having a press conference celebrating your legislation, when all of a sudden Trump pulls it, said yesterday after a 3-hour meeting at the White House he was sending the housing affordability bill to Trump. Do you have any information as to whether or not he's going to sign this thing?
No. And listen, don't ask me to go into Donald Trump's head. I'm not going there. I'll do a lot for my country, but not that. But let's do procedure for a minute, but we got to talk substance. But let's do procedure for just a second. So this is now a bill that has passed the Senate 85-5. Okay, you just don't get those in the United States Senate. It passed the House by a similar overwhelming majority. 90% of the House voted in favor of this. So this is Republicans, Democrats, and the reason is because it's a damn good bill. The reason is because we have a housing crisis everywhere in America. The reason is because this is a bill that is helpful in rural areas and urban areas, all aiming toward bringing down the cost of building new units of housing, because that's our answer. You got to build more housing, and because this bill, for the first time ever, says to private equity, you do not get to come into our neighborhoods, buy up all the housing, turn us into a nation of renters. First bill ever to say no to private equity. Love this moment. And damned if we didn't get Democrats and Republicans to sign off on it. President of the United States had called me about it. This is part of how it all got started. So Monday, it does the final passage through the Senate. Tuesday evening, it passes the House. Wednesday morning, we get up. I put on my nicest jacket, ready to go. Donald Trump is going to sign this thing into law. And the fun part is, all the Republicans are out there posting about, it has my part in it about this. It has my part in it about that. I made this happen. And great. Success has many mothers. And that's how you get things done in Washington. So I'm happy about this. Democrats are posting, Republicans are posting, right up until 2 hours before the signing ceremony. Table is set up, stage is set up, the flags are all up, and Donald Trump has another tantrum. And he says he's just not going to sign it. And no reason other than he has something else that has not passed the House, has not passed the Senate, does not have majority support behind it. He says he wants to sign that instead. One more Donald Trump living in an alternative universe. So we don't know what happens.
You were going to describe process, though. What happens? There are lots of options for it to become law other than just a signature, correct?
So what's happened now, we'll whip out our constitutions to see what happens on how a bill becomes a law once it's passed the House and the Senate. Usually the president signs it. Look, damn, I thought he was going to take a victory lap, right?
Yeah.
I thought he was going to jump in front of this parade and claim all the credit for himself, which is fine. Just get it across the finish line. Now what happens is the Speaker of the House has to present to the president. Once he presents to the president, there are three possibilities. The president could sign it, the president could veto it, or the president could just do nothing. Someone could hide it under his desk or whatever. If he signs it, obviously it becomes law. If he vetoes it, it would come back to us. Now, we have veto-proof majorities that have already signed on, who've already voted for it. On the other hand, that would require something other than Republicans bowing down to Donald Trump. So that would be an interesting moment. Or he could just let it go. Now, Mike Johnson, there's one more twist in this.
And it becomes law if he just lets it go, yeah.
One more twist in this little mystery, and that is, how does Mike Johnson present? And at first, he claimed he hadn't presented. But as of this morning, he says he has presented. So keep an eye. 10 days, we'll have an answer one way or the other.
And the president has said he's not going to sign it because he wants his SAVE Act to get through.
Not happening, baby.
Does not have the votes, and that would impact the people's ability to vote. You know, there's a lot of...
Can we stay on this for just one more
Sure.
second, the housing thing? We actually have spent a lot of time reading the contents of this thing, not the whole bill, because it's, 300 and some pages?
You can't read 300 and some pages, teach Jim.
One
It's
of us can,
double-spaced.
the other one cannot.
Okay.
And I have to say, it's pretty terrific, and it does
is.
break ground. There's a however, which I think this is a really important long-term solution on a number of grants.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest with the public, in terms with interest rates high, energy prices still high, this is not going to be something that all of a sudden is going to turn around this housing crisis tomorrow or next month or the next month. It's a longer-term solution. Is that a fair description?
It is absolutely a fair description. But here's the good news from it. First of all, there are pieces in this bill that are real, they will make a real financial difference and make it fast. A few. Manufactured housing. There's a piece in the bill that changes the requirements for getting access to federal funding when you're doing manufactured housing rather than building on site. The estimates, the experts tell us that provision alone will drop the cost on average for doing manufactured housing by about $10,000 a unit. There are a lot of places and a lot of new uses where we could be using manufactured housing. And the point is you get a little bit of a snowball going here. You make the financing a little easier and cheaper, and you get a little more innovation. You get people trying, instead of just one-offs, you get them doing, how about we do a whole unit of 20 or 40? So there's some pieces like that. But the way I would describe every part of this bill is it just moves us in the right direction. It's not going to be an overnight change, but it also is the federal government, for the first time in like pretty much forever, saying something besides, damn, price of housing is going up.
Yeah.
That's what the federal government has been doing now for decades. I'm shocked at how high the price of housing is. And this was an effort to say, tell us different ways that we could be helpful. Not one magic bullet that the federal government comes in and makes this big foot change. Much of this started with the mayors of Massachusetts. I was meeting with the mayors of Massachusetts off and on. I've done this ever since I've been in the Senate. But a few years back, we just kept talking about how housing is up, housing is up. And so I said, okay, guys, what do you need? What would work? And the answer turns out that you get in Pittsfield is different from the answer that you get in Somerville.
Yeah.
And that's different from the answer you get in Martha's Vineyard, right? They're all different on where exactly the housing problems are. So that's when, like for me, the light bulb finally goes off and I said, wait a minute. Instead of trying to do the three big things that are going to make the difference, it's let's put a lot of different ideas together. And the mayors around the country started pitching in their ideas. This bill has ideas, good ideas, that were hammered out from every single Democrat and every single Republican on the Senate Banking Committee. Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs is what that committee technically is. And I look at the bill, and I look at nearly 50 provisions, and some of them I look at and I think, dang, this is going to matter. I see how my folks can use this. I look at others and I think, Everybody in the Senate can do that now. It's just that they have a different group that they look at. But here's the thing. We actually put together a housing bill, bipartisan, a big bipartisan bill, that was not about let's weaken everything down to there will be a study.
Yeah.
We will have a commission to look at the housing problem. We will do nothing, and that's how it is that Democrats and Republicans can sign on. Instead, there was a real momentum for, I've got some things that could matter. No poison pills. There were some things that we just couldn't do and get it across the finish line on both sides. But I've got some things I think will be good, and it created more tolerance for I'll let you do some of the things that you think are good, even though they're not exactly how I would have gone. That's a good sign, not just for we did this, but I'm ready for Housing Bill 2.0. We're ready to go again.
We're talking to Elizabeth Warren.
Haven't even got this one across the finish line, but I'm ready to go again.
You know, another thing that's really killing people besides housing is the cost of child care. I remember when you dipped your hat in the ring and ran for president a few years ago, you talked about, I think it was, you wouldn't have to pay any more than 7% of your salary towards your child care, and I thought that was a winning issue because it's people's more than their rent and their mortgage in some cases. Mandami's had some success down in New York City with getting free child care, and I'm wondering, is there anything, I mean, why can't we get some of that in Massachusetts, and why can't we do that, or will we ever on the federal level?
Right, so you're asking the question, why can't we have nice things?
Yeah, why can't we have nice things?
So I want you to know, we live, richest country in the world, right? Of the 37 industrial nations, the 37 richest nations in the world, we are number 35 on what we spend on child care for our babies 0 to 5. And I just want to be clear here. We spend money on infrastructure. We build roads and bridges, clean water, electricity. Why? Because we say we want business to flourish in America. We want people to be able to get to work. We want them to be able to do their work. And that's an investment all of us make. Nobody stops and asks the question, well, I'm not sure I'm going to drive on a road in Utah, so I don't want to contribute. We say, nope. We contribute because it helps us all do better as a nation. By golly, universal child care is infrastructure. You want to have mamas and daddies be able to go to work, then they need access to safe, high quality, affordable, accessible child care. I had a whole bunch of small business owners in for a hearing last year. And I asked them, and it really wasn't a set-up deal. I said, what is the number one thing the federal government could do to help you in your business? And I thought they'd give me tax stuff or they'd give me regulatory stuff. And the first guy just starts out and he says, my workforce needs child care. I just lose too many parents because they think they can. I have a young workforce, and or they can't do it. They can't show up. They can't afford it. Their child care costs more than they make working for me. This is an investment we need to make. Now, here's the good news. You ready for some good news?
Yes.
Okay. Some good news. The folks who argued about child care when Joe Biden was in office, and we didn't get it across the finish line, couldn't persuade the White House, couldn't persuade all the Democrats to get organized, and lost our chance. Now we're saying we're sitting down literally right now, House and Senate side, it's all Democrats, all the Democrats who feel like they want to have a say in this, and we are hammering out the details of the child care bill now. It is my determination that on the first day of a new administration in January 2029, when we have the majority, when that happens, that we will have a child care bill ready to go, and it will be universal. It is not a poverty program. It is a program for every baby, and it's a win-win-win. It's a win for our parents who want to finish their education or go to school. It's a win for our babies that we have real high quality across the board child care, and it is a win for our child care workers who do some of the most responsible jobs in our country, that they will be paid commensurate with their training and responsibility. Win, win, win. We're going to do this.
So, Senator Warren, you actually wrote a really interesting piece earlier this year in USA Today with Mamdani about this very subject. But speaking of him, the major topic for talking heads since Tuesday's elections were Mamdani's 3 wins, well, at least a couple of his 3 wins, 2 of them upsetting incumbent members of the House of Representatives. And one woman in particular who has views that a lot of people consider to be extreme. She won the election. And the fear is, government by anecdote, I call it, pioneered by Ronald Reagan, done pretty well by Donald Trump, just like they use trans athletes and $200 million when there are virtually none in high places to help defeat Kamala Harris, that they're going to try to tie all of you and challengers who have a chance to unseat Republicans to the agenda of that woman in New York City. Do you not worry about their ability to do that and undo the optimism that you and others have about November?
Look, that's definitely the move. And our job is just to be prepared and fight back.
How do you fight back?
Well, partly I just want to say, I don't know 2 of the 3, but I do know 1 of the 3 that's in the Mamdani sweep. And that's Brad Lander. Brad was the comptroller. In fact, was the comptroller of New York City. I've worked with him for, years now. What did he run on? He ran on making New York City affordable, not for billionaires, but making it affordable for working people, which is what Zoran Mamdani ran on, which, as I understand it, are what the other winners ran on. So I think we're seeing 2 patterns. One that the Republicans are going to want to play. They're going to want to play the, let me tell you a story and it sounds terrible, and the commies are taking over the country, or whatever is their current variation. And the other one is going to be, I hope, our side that keeps saying, look, this economy is rigged. It is rigged by the wealthy and the well-connected. There's one set of rules for the Jeffrey Epsteins and J.P. Morgan Chases of the world, and an entirely different set of rules for you and your kids. And we have a chance through our elected officials to change that. And don't just listen to rhetoric. This is where I thought Mamdani was brilliant. I have 5 specific things I'm going to deliver that will make a difference in your life. Hold me accountable for that. And a whole bunch of New Yorkers didn't just vote for him. A whole bunch of New Yorkers said, that inspires some hope in me. And I'll get out there and I'll knock on doors for you. I'll get out there and hold signs for you. I will show up for you, and I will show up for my democracy. And then once he won, he starts having town halls again. Basically, they did the renters' hearings so people could come in and participate in their democracy. This is such a crucial midterm coming up. We have a chance to say that we truly are the nation on the 4th of July of we the people, and we are damn well going to take our government back.
And by the way, he got his rent freeze yesterday in New York City. I'm sorry, Margaret.
Senator Warren, you've supported Graham Plattner's running against Susan Collins up in Maine, even after we found out people probably know he has a Nazi tattoo. He said he didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. Some of the women he went out with previously said he was volatile, or then he was sexting women after he was married, all that stuff. You're still with him.
Yeah.
Why?
Look, Graham Plattner has said that he is not proud of what he's done in the past. He has taken responsibility. And he said to the people of Maine, I hope you will judge me, not for the worst that I've done, but for the work that I've done since then, for what I'm trying to do now, and for the fight that I'm in. He gets out there every day and meets with the people of Maine. They get to ask him whatever they want to ask him. And he talks with him. And he talks about his past, and he talks about his present. But notice what he's out there fighting for. He talks, for example, about a war halfway around the world. Tens of billions, we don't even know yet, hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent. 14 Americans who have lost their lives. Who knows how many in the Middle East who've been killed. And how is one person, he says, in Maine, I will say in Massachusetts, any better off? They're not. They're worse off. And Graham Plattner says he will be in this fight to make this country work. Not for a handful of insiders who figured out both how to make a profit off this war, but he will be there to make this country, to fight to make this country work for the working people of Maine. And this is what democracy's about. He's out there talking to them about it.
Okay, before you go, Marjorie told me not to ask this question,
Oh,
but I
okay,
can't help.
definitely do
This
it
is
then.
like an insider kind of thing.
Okay.
We are both fairly news obsessed, like I think most people are here.
Mhm.
The other night, I will not name names unless you ask me to. I'm watching a couple of your colleagues commenting on things I care about, and I have a feeling you care about. These two senators, and let me put this as kindly as I can. Two of the dumbest people I've ever... No, I'm serious. And this is a serious question. I mean, you obviously worked across the aisle in remarkable fashion on this housing thing. How do you deal with your colleagues who just don't even understand? I don't mean they disagree with you. That's one thing. They're entitled. Who literally don't understand what the hell you're talking about. Be honest. How do you do that?
My job is to get as much good done as I humanly can. And I use every tool at my disposal. This is what we talk about in my office all the time. What are your tools? Sometimes the tools are straight to straight, senator to senator. Sometimes they're staff to staff. Sometimes there are other people who influence. But that's the nature of the beast, is I know how to count. I know what it's going to take to get something across the finish line. And I'm looking for the best bill, because this is a lot of work. You better make sure you've got something worth getting out there and fighting for. But if you do, then it's about using every possible tool to get there. I'll give you one small example of this.
Please.
When I was fighting the child care fight, because I think it's a fight worth having, back during the Biden administration, some of you may remember Joe Manchin.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely would not move. I called one child care provider after another in West Virginia, personally. Ask them about their places, what would make a difference for the children that they're trying to take care of. I talked to one who said her big problem is that she has to pay her people so little that they keep leaving her to work at the gas station next door to try to get these people to talk to Joe Manchin. Now, ultimately, we didn't pull it off. But all I'm saying is, you can't just throw a good idea out there and hope it's going to make it to the United States Congress today.
So
You gotta be willing to
saying
work.
you don't go home to your husband and say, what a dope. You don't do that?
No, I still do that.
Okay. I just want to be clear.
Damn.
Of course. Elizabeth Warren, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
very much
We
for being
appreciate it.
We have been speaking with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, and we're very grateful for your time. Thank you very much, Senator, for coming in. Coming up after this quick break, the former United States Ambassador to Spain and Andorra, Alan Solomont, is going to talk about that. He's also going to talk about the Democratic Party in 2026, 2028, and beyond. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Brady. This is BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, it's our weekly menagerie of misfit news, including the Boston cop slide going international and the world's loudest person being crowned in Australia. Wouldn't want to be trapped in an elevator with that guy. Plus, horseshoe crabs are the original Massachusetts blue bloods. One group says their future could be in peril. That's the Curiosity Desk, today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And 360 Public Relations. For 25 years, committed to helping brands connect and grow through culturally relevant storytelling, thought leadership, influencer marketing, and more. Learn more at 360pr.plus. And Cornerstone at Canton. They offer seniors the privacy and independence of their own apartment and a community with care and support options to help meet needs now and as they age in place. CornerstoneCanton.com.
Welcome back to BPR 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. On tape next week. We're back July 6th. Joined now at the library by Alan Solomont. Alan is the former ambassador to Spain and Andorra for Barack Obama. Then he served as the dean of Tufts University Tisch College, where he's now dean emeritus. He's chair emeritus also of the Pro-Peace, Pro-Two-State Solution Action Committee, J Street. Along the way, under his leadership, Massachusetts raised more money per capita than any other state for Barack Obama. These days, he's meeting with the top Democratic Senate and House candidates from around the country. That's what he's here to talk about. And we have to mention, just 2 days ago, he has been titled, quote, Commander of the Order of Isabel La Catolica, from the current, it's like being knighted in the UK, from the current ambassador of Spain in D.C. This is what the ambassador had to say in brief on Wednesday night.
He championed initiatives as volunteering, civil engagement, and community service. And he traveled extensively through Spain, and this is why he has been an example for me.
Alan, Commander Solomont, it is a pleasure to have you. Welcome and congratulations, Alan.
So
thank you, Jim.
You had that beautiful medal you were showing it.
Can you show it again?
I think we should show it. I mean, it gets right in the camera.
Can we
people
get on the
can see the gorgeous medal.
Aren't we lucky to have Elizabeth Warren representing us, not only in Massachusetts, but across the country?
Yeah. Here it is. There's the medal.
So
do you get special perks? I mean, do you get to cut the lines or best seats at restaurants? Or what do you get with this deal? That is gorgeous.
I get a very heavy medal to put on my jacket.
That is, by the way, it really is like being nice. What did that feel like? I mean, that's a big deal.
It was very cool.
You're so humble. That's pathetic. If I got it, I'd be wearing it on my forehead, walking around.
I will say this. There are 1 million living orders of the British Empire, whatever, dissimilar. There are only 75,000 of these since 1813. Okay?
That's better.
Yeah. That's better. It's very impressive and very weighty. You can tell by looking at it.
Yeah. So, Alan, can I just list, I just mentioned, you have met with virtually every Democrat who either is in a critical race to keep his or her seat or is likely or hopefully will flip a GOP Senate seat, according to you. Ossoff, Plattner, Cooper in North Carolina, Brown in Ohio, Tallarico in Texas, Osborne in Nebraska, Scott Klum, who we spoke to with Joe Kennedy a couple of weeks ago from Mississippi. Give us the big picture, what you think the state of the Democratic candidacies is, and then we're going to talk about some individuals with you.
The first point I want to make is that this is not a national election. This is not Democratic Party against the Republican Party. This is maybe 10 important Senate seats, 40-odd important House seats, where it depends upon good candidates running good campaigns, talking to their constituents about what is important. The Senate is in play. You know, a year ago, we didn't think that the map would make it possible for Democrats to regain control of the Senate. That has changed. There are probably 6 seats that can flip. And Democrats are either running even or polling better than the Republican in each of these 6 seats: Maine, North Carolina, Ohio, Alaska, Iowa, and Texas. And we've got great candidates. Roy Cooper, who has served...
Former governor of North Carolina.
Governor.
Yep.
Josh Turek, who is a state legislature in Iowa. He represents the reddest district in the legislature in Iowa held by a Democrat. He was born with spina bifida. His father was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam. He's been in a wheelchair all of his life. He's a 4-time Paralympian. He won 2 gold medals in wheelchair basketball. And most importantly, he played professional wheelchair basketball in Spain.
Wow. Wow.
And he just won the primary. And he's running about a point ahead of the Republican there in Iowa. Iowa is in play. There are probably 2-3 House seats that could flip from Republican to Democrat. There's a candidate for governor in Iowa who's running a great campaign. And then there's Josh Turek. It is possible that Iowa, which we know is a very red state, could become a blue state or a bluer state. But in the Senate, we really, we have to hold 3 seats. We have to hold Chris Pappas in New Hampshire, which is looking promising. We have to hold John Ossoff in Georgia, and he's running an incredibly good campaign and running
ahead. A lot of presidential talk about John Ossoff.
There is. Young guy,
Yeah.
He's up like one poll, 7 points in Georgia, running against a crazy MAGA Republican that this Trump has endorsed. And then there's a primary in Michigan, which presents some problems.
I get concerned, and you know a lot about raising money. The RNC has raised a 7-1 money advantage over the Democrats, and then you get the fears about the elections in general, the president messing up with the elections. So how worried are you about those 2 things?
Well, I'm especially worried about what Trump is going to try to do. Look, he is going to do everything possible to control the elections, to rig the elections. He knows he's in deep trouble. I mean, he's underwater. He's the biggest asset that Democrats have in the election. This is not going to be an election about Donald Trump, but he is dragging down Republicans all over the country.
Why do you say it's not going to be an election about Donald Trump? What do you mean by that?
It's going to be an election about what concerns the people, the dinner table issues in Maine and North Carolina, affordability, rents, the cost of child care, will be about this crazy war that we're waging in Iraq and all the money we're spending there that we should be spending in health. I was just with Graham Plattner talking about what is likely to happen to the healthcare system in Maine as a result of the big, beautiful, ugly bill. It's already happening. Hospitals, community hospitals in Maine are already closing. Obstetrical units are closing. People have to travel to deliver a baby, have to travel great distances. It's already happening. We don't even have to wait, and it will only get worse. And Susan Collins has been has not said boo, has voted for that bill, has supported this president, no matter how she tries to paint herself.
Do you worry that Marjorie asked Elizabeth Warren if she still endorsed, supported Plattner, and she said yes, like most Democrats have who endorsed him earlier. Do you worry that he's going to be used? Democrats of prominence, from the Hughes to the Bernie Sanders to the Warren Sanders, virtually everybody, it's going to be used to say Democrats are hypocrites. They criticize all of the this is a euphemism, unseemly behavior. Admittedly, Trump is a felon and a sexual abuser, which goes a little bit further. You're a fraud or a hypocrite because you trash him, and then I don't mean you, the generic you, supports Graham Plattner. How do you respond to that?
Graham Plattner is not screwing up this country. He is not supporting all of the crazy things, the corruption, the use of the presidency, the debasement of the presidency. He's not supporting that the way Susan Collins is. What Susan Collins is doing is really taking this country apart, okay, and causing real pain to real families in Maine and around the country. Whatever Graham Plattner mistakes he's made, he's owned up to them. He's spoken about them. Yes, people, unfortunately, are talking more about Graham Plattner than they are about Susan Collins. We've got to change the conversation and really talk about the damage that Susan Collins is doing. Look what she did with the vote in the Supreme Court by voting for Justice Kavanaugh, basically putting him onto the court.
And she said she didn't regret it, even though he lied to her about overturning Roe v. Wade.
And look, she's gone after Plattner on the issue of anti-Semitism. She hasn't said boo about the anti-Semitism in the White House, the anti-Semitism that exists in this administration.
You know, that's as long as you bring up anti-Semitism, the Israeli situation is becoming a lot of Democrats are switching their allegiance, who had been with Israel, and now it's moving to Palestine.
Well, the guy that beat Goldman, Lander, that Elizabeth Warren just mentioned, the primary issue was Israel. How about that?
And Lander will call himself, and I know him, is a liberal Zionist. So he.
What does that mean?
He supports Israel. He loves Israel as a country, as a Jewish homeland. He hates this government of Netanyahu. You know, just like you can...
Does that describe you, too?
Yes.
Okay. No,
you can love America and you can hate the government in Washington today. You can love Israel and you can hate the government in Israel, too.
Which is what many Jews in Israel think of the government. They hate it as well, from what I've read.
They are. I mean, Netanyahu is quite unpopular given what he has done. They're living in quite different circumstances than we are. But what has happened over the last 20 years in Israel is, as we would say, Ashanda, under the leadership. And many young people...
What's Ashanda?
It's...
a mess?
A mess. Worse than a mess.
Okay.
It's awful.
Okay.
Shitty.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
In any event, but let's go back to talking about our elections, the midterm elections.
One of the things I was thinking about in anticipation of you coming, particularly the fact you raised so much money for Barack Obama, other than Obama, is there any big-time Democrat who each of these candidates, when you're having lunch or dinner, whatever you're doing, says, boy, I really hope he or she comes to campaign for me? Is there a second after Obama?
No, these, as I say, these elections are going to be about good candidates, waging good campaigns, talking to the issues that concern their constituents. Rebecca Cook, who's a farmer in Wisconsin 3, is going to be talking about different issues than Bob Brooks, who's the head of the firefighters in Pennsylvania 7. There are 4 seats in Pennsylvania that are in play that could be flipped. There are 3 in Iowa. There's a seat in Montana, actually, that could flip. There are a couple of dozen seats across the country, and it's one of the strongest fields that Democrats have ever had.
But what about this money difference, though? I mean, when it gets down to the election, you got television ads all over the place. I mean, is it...
Do you know how much money we raised for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in 2024?
How much?
$1.5 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
So you're saying that you think the Democrats are going to catch up?
No, we're not going to have as much money to deploy as the Republicans. With all the dark money, with all the super PACs, we won't have that. They have $230 million as a starting point to put into Senate races. They're going to put $40 million into Georgia to try to take down John Ossoff. We're not going to match that. We just need enough money. The Democratic candidates need enough money to be able to compete, to get their message out, to build their field organizations. And frankly, James Tallarico raised $27 million in the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah. They're neck and neck down in Texas, I understand. He and Ken Paxton, who's got some problems, ethical problems.
And he's a great candidate. He's a Presbyterian seminarian. He says he can talk to conservative Republicans in the Texas legislature about the Constitution and about Scripture.
So, Alan Solomont, the question we get every day, and we got it a couple of times today early in the show, and I promised I was going to ask Warren. I forgot to. Now I'll ask you. I live in Massachusetts, someone says. 9 out of... How many congresspeople we have? 9? 11 out of 11 of our federal officials are Democrats. Mm-hmm. If I'm not loaded, I can't write a big check. What do I do in Massachusetts to help Tallarico, Brown, Osborne, whomever it is, win in their states? Is there something for people to do?
Look, Massachusetts has been a source of money for Democratic candidates running across the country. You don't have to write a big check. You can send in a little contribution. You can send $10 a month, okay, $50 a month to candidates. Everybody's got to find something. Look, our country is facing an existential crisis. What's happening in Washington, we never thought we would live to see the day when we would have a president that would have mixed martial arts on the White House lawn for $60 million, okay, who would say that the celebration of the 250th anniversary of this great republic is going to be about him, who would be walking away with billions of dollars in corrupt money that his family is getting as a result of his presidency. I mean, my goodness. And we've got to stop that. And the first way in which we can stop it is by regaining Democratic majorities in the House and in the Senate. It's not going to solve things. It's not going to pass legislation. But it is going to pave the way, hopefully, for reversing the situation in the 28. But it is also going to put some brakes on this maniac. And so what Massachusetts can do is find good candidates. I can give you some good ones. You know, Iowa won, Christina Bohannon. She ran in 24. She lost by 799 votes. She was brought down by the Trump vote in Iowa. She's going to win, I believe. Josh Turek, the senator. Yep. I mentioned Rebecca Cook in Wisconsin. Bob Brooks in Pennsylvania. Paige Cognetti, who's the mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania. She's got a really good shot at flipping that seat. She's running against a first-term Republican named Bresnahan, who campaigned on the issue of stock trading in the House. He has become the biggest stock trader of any member of the House.
Well, at least he's honoring his campaign pledge.
The hypocrisy is
okay.
And everybody can, or you can send postcards. You can. I mean, there are a lot of grassroots organizations that have been created, like Indivisible and others, that are there channeling people's ability to advocate and have influence on what's going on outside of Massachusetts.
Okay, Alan Solomont, you've improved our mood. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Let me just say this. Yeah. Hope is a choice.
Hope is a choice. That's right. Hope is a choice.
Hear that from Barack Obama? Did he tell you that?
I made that up.
That's Alan Solomont. Hope is a choice.
Congratulations,
Thank you very,
Alan.
very much
Thanks
for coming.
Really
and congratulations on being your big medal there and all the accolades from Spain. We've been speaking to Alan Solomont, former ambassador to Spain and Andorra under President Barack Obama, Dean Emeritus at Tufts Tisch College and Chair Emeritus of the Pro-Israel, Pro-Peace Political Action Committee, J Street. Thank you very much for being with us, Alan Solomont. Thank you. Coming up after this quick break, algae, more algae, more algae. We're so obsessed with the reflecting pool algae, we're getting to the bottom of the muck with an algae expert, an environmental engineer, Tufts professor Stephen Chopper. He's next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, Johnny Cakes, Clam Bakes, and Succotash, all iconic New England fare, but it didn't come from the area's foreign settlers. As part of our celebration of America's 250th anniversary, we trace New England colonial cuisine to its indigenous roots. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill, a garden destination 50 miles from Boston. Visitors can discover summer with thousands of blooms, twilight experiences, art exhibitions, and educational programs for all ages. NEBG.org. And Brookmeadow at Cobb Center, an assisted living community offering wellness care and support services, including an on-site fitness specialist to help seniors stay physically active. More at brookmeadowslr.com.
Welcome back to BPR 89.7 GBH, Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder. We've spent most of this week speaking about algae in the reflecting pool. Marjorie and I have no idea what we're talking about. Finally, we found someone who did. Environmental engineer Stephen Chopper is professor emeritus at Tufts, where he chaired the environmental engineering department, leading authority on water quality modeling, climate impacts, and has authored numerous publications and studies on the topic. Stephen Chopper, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you very much for being with us. So the president is blaming vandalism. That's his latest thing to blame. But you are an expert on this. What is the problem with the reflecting pool in D.C.?
Okay, when I was first asked that question, my honest response was, duh. Because basically I said, you've got this pool, it's shallow, there's no flushing, there's no mixing because you want to keep it like a mirror. They get high nutrient water to put into it from the tidal basin. There's no shade, so the phytoplankton, the algae, get light. and then somebody decided to paint the bottom of it dark blue. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, and I've talked to a lot of my colleagues about this. It's kind of a no-brainer, and I think it's indicative of the Trump administration. And I could criticize the whole government on this, by the way, not using science and using the existing knowledge to understand and solve a problem.
So if it's nutrients and climate change, and I know you did a study on this 9 years ago that predicted virtually everything that is happening, not just in the reflecting pool, but the explosion of these algae blooms all over the place. We're not going to end climate change anytime soon. So do we have the capacity to choke off nutrient flows in such a way so that we don't have to suffer through these algae blooms, some of which can be dangerous, I know, not all. But is there that capacity or no?
Of course there is, but you need an administration in Washington that does not neuter EPA, USGS, all of the regulatory agencies that were following the Clean Water Act and which have provisions in them for reducing nutrients into natural waters. Okay, so it's more a matter of, again, the administration basically trying to reverse the Clean Water Act. So in other words, now, if you go around the world, they're not as lucky as us because they don't have a Clean Water Act. But we've got that on the books. But as we know, with so much legislation, if you don't enforce it, right, it's just, it never has any impact.
You know, the Christian Science Monitor has a big pool right not far from here. It's big like the reflecting pool. I guess there is some algae at the bottom of it. Mostly it's pretty clear. And that's because I understand they pump clean water in that's not full of phosphates and nutrients. Is that the difference?
Yeah. I mean, right there. And that would be, that's why it's like a duh. When I've talked to my friends, we've come out with around 8 solutions to the reflecting pool that aren't even within our expertise area, but there are people in the field who do this for a living, making sure that ponds stay clear. And it would be inexpensive to go and do it, but the main thing you need to do is not to put in nitrogen and phosphorus into the system.
We reached out to the administration to see if they'd allow you to consult with them, and they checked your record. They said, in light of the fact that you don't have a felony record, they're not interested. So unfortunately, Professor, it's not going to work out.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah. You bet. Thank you.
We have been speaking with environmental engineer Stephen Chopra, Professor Emeritus at Tufts University, where he chaired the Environmental Engineering Department. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thanks a lot for coming down to the Boston Public Library today to watch us. You can keep up with us 24/7 wherever our podcast. Check out our TikTok page. We're on vacation next week, but we'll be back on Monday at the Boston Public Radio studio, and all this week we're going to play best ofs of our show. The Monday's Encore Edition features Henry Winkler, who used to be the Fonz, and coffee legend George Howell. I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez, additional support, Jack Siciliano, John the Claude Parker, Jamie Bologna, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Brad Lewis, Juan Jose Cadera, Sandra Lopez Burke, our security team, Darius and Derek, and our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Curiosity Desk is right after us here at the library, and then also at the library, right at the Curiosity Desk, is the Culture Show's Week in Review edition that starts at 2, also at the Boston Public Library studio. Jim, have a nice vacation.
Well, you have a nice vacation.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to text you about the algae almost every day, actually.
I mean, that's right. I don't want to miss any good algae stories. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in. Please tune in again next week, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Modern Pest Services, providing integrated pest management for Boston homes and businesses. Modern Pest uses a prevention-first approach to seasonal pests to help target the source of the problem. Learn more at modernpest.com. And Newport Mansions, presenting 11 historic properties and landscapes, including 7 National Historic Landmarks, tracing America's architectural and social development from the colonial era through the Gilded Age. NewportMansions.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, we're live from the Boston Public Library. We kick things off with our weekly menagerie of misfit news, our slightly off-kilter survey of the more eccentric side of the week's happenings, in case you missed it. It includes a heroic rescue of a raccoon who's got his head stuck in a jar in Denham, the Dubliner Irish pub suspiciously closing its doors just in time for England's World Cup match, and so much more. Then they're the original Massachusetts Blue Bloods, horseshoe crabs. They've been around these parts for hundreds of millions of years. These so-called living fossils have survived every mass extinction on the planet, but one group says their future could be in peril. Plus, we get a visit from Henry David Thoreau himself. Well, kind of. Either way, we'll ask him if it's Thoreau or Thoreau. We're nothing if not thorough. Anyhow, it's all ahead this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. In Los Angeles, a mistrial has been declared in the case of a man accused of igniting last year's deadly Palisades fire. Defendant Jonathan Rinderknecht faced 3 charges that could have sent him to prison for 45 years. 10 members of the jury want to acquit him, and 2 held that he was guilty. It's not known if the prosecution will ask for a retrial. 12 people died in the blaze, one of the worst in state history, and thousands of homes were destroyed. Venezuela's president is reporting the death toll from 2 major earthquakes this week is up to 589, with almost 3,000 injured. The quakes, which rank among the strongest in Venezuela in over a century, hit the capital Caracas and surrounding areas. Reporter Manuel Rueda describes the scene on the ground.
What people are saying is that some parts of Caracas look like a war zone because many buildings have collapsed entirely. And also in La Guaira, which is a city about an hour away on the Caribbean coast. And because so many buildings have collapsed, people have lost their homes, they're sleeping in parks at night. Even people who perhaps their building didn't collapse are sleeping outside because they're afraid.
Reporter Manuel Rueda. Crews from around the world have been arriving in Venezuela to aid in the search and rescue. Crude oil prices are dropping as the supply shock caused by the war with Iran eases. But as NPR's Scott Horsley reports, retail gasoline prices remain elevated.
As oil tanker traffic in the Strait of Hormuz begins to come untangled, Saudi Arabia is preparing to start shipping oil once again. Saudi Aramco began loading tankers at its Ras Tanura terminal for the first time in almost 4 months. Crude oil prices have fallen nearly 10% in the last week, with the U.S. benchmark dropping below $70 a barrel. Retail gas and diesel prices have also been inching lower, although AAA says the average price of regular gas is still about 92 cents a gallon higher than when the war with Iran began. Apple is raising prices for MacBooks and iPads, and the price of iPhones is expected to jump as well. The company blames the rising cost of memory chips, sparked by the artificial intelligence boom. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Chinese authorities report that an aircraft has crashed into Beijing's tallest building. Eyewitnesses say the small plane crashed into the CITIC Tower. From Taipei, Jan Kamenzine-Brumby has more.
Photos show 2 damaged glass panels on the outside of the building in Beijing's central business district. Pictures of a small aeroplane tail on the ground have also been circulating on social media. Videos and photos of the crash and the aftermath have been removed from Chinese social media. Authorities have closed off roads surrounding the 108-story skyscraper as dozens of police and emergency vehicles surround the site of the incident. For NPR News, I'm Jan Kamenzine-Brumby in Taipei.
On Wall Street, the Dow is up 98, This is NPR News in Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. State education officials have approved the first proposals from private colleges to offer 3-year bachelor's degrees. The Massachusetts Board of Higher Education voted today on plans for Merrimack College and Suffolk University. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports.
Beginning in the fall of 2027, Merrimack will offer 3-year degrees in psychology, communication, criminal justice, and business. Suffolk will offer a 3-year program in healthcare administration. Supporters say the shorter degree programs will improve graduation rates and help students finish school faster with less debt. Opponents say reducing cost is a great goal, but it shouldn't be done by lowering quality or rigor. 3-year degrees have become popular nationwide as colleges look for ways to address affordability concerns and get more graduates into the workforce. Kirk Carapezza, GBH News.
The last 3 Hooters restaurants in Massachusetts are now closed. The chain's Saugus, West Springfield, and Dedham locations all shut their doors for good this week, following the closure of their Shrewsbury location last month. Hooters filed for bankruptcy at the end of March 2025 amid reports of financial strain due to labor and food costs and competition from neighboring restaurant chains. I was only in Hooters once. There are no owls there. Red Sox Yankees play Game 2 of their 4-game series tonight, and it's Norway and France at Boston Stadium, 3 o'clock this afternoon. Big game. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include DuckDuckGo, who believes AI should be useful, private, and optional. DuckDuckGo offers controls to turn AI on or off. Learn more at duckduckgo.com.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. We are live at the Boston Public Library. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're also streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, it is, of course, Friday, which means we kick things off with our little menagerie of misfit news, in case you missed it. It's our weekly roundup of a few of the more, I guess we could say, offbeat stories this week, things that maybe make you want to double-check the headlines. Did the Dubliner Irish pub close intentionally on the day of the England World Cup match, or was it merely a coincidence? And how do you lose a 3-year-old giraffe in Texas? We're going to get into those stories and more. Joining us here are 2 people who are no strangers to the news of the day, Axios Boston reporter Mike Deehan and Boston-based writer and reporter Megan Johnson. Mike and Megan, welcome to the Curiosity Desk. Great to have you.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Well, I saw you both perk up. I'm going to call an audible here. We just heard Henry Santoro reading the news there, and word that the final 3 Hooters are closing in Massachusetts. Do we have thoughts on this, Michael?
I agree with Henry Santoro. I've only been to Hooters once. I saw no owls, and that's really the extent of it. I think I was 16.
All right. Megan, thoughts? Is this a dark day?
We used to build things in this country. I'm actually very sad that I've never actually been to one now that they're all closed.
Yeah.
Because Route 1 Saugus is like a prime destination for people watching.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I guess a moment of silence for Hooters, and we move on. So I want to start with, I think, my favorite local conspiracy of the week, which is the Dubliner Irish pub. Now, we're about to celebrate America 250 here, and that's, of course, us throwing off the yoke of Britain. And we're not the only country that has had our issues with Great Britain and had to fight for our freedom from Great Britain. I'm going to start with a little cut from the 1996 film Michael Collins. This stars Liam Neeson. It's about Irish Republicans fighting against British rule in Ireland. In this scene, Michael Collins has been captured during the Easter Rising. Let's hear what happens.
What happens next time? We won't play by their rules, Harry. We'll invent our own.
They'll invent their own rules to get back at the English. And the question is, did the Dubliner Irish pub do its own little version of getting back at the English this week? In case you missed this in the news, folks, what happened was this has been one of the pubs in town where a lot of folks have been gathering for World Cup festivities, including the Scottish fans, who we all know were in town for a few weeks being rowdy. Well, this week on Tuesday, England was playing a match in Boston Stadium in Foxborough, but the Dubliner was closed.
Yes. Apparently, a note posted on the Dubliner said that it was to give the staff the day off after the Scots, put them through their paces during their time here. But of course, this coincides with the first English game, and I believe on that note they just said that there was nothing going on in Boston this weekend.
Yeah.
So you may as well, close down. And there's it'd be hard to miss the English-Scottish solidarity in this moment, not to mention the just Irish attitudes towards the English in general.
Yeah, so what do you make of it, Megan? Do we think this is just a coincidence? Did the staff just need the day off? Did it have to be this day?
I think two things can be true here.
Oh, okay,
I
go
think
on.
the staff needed the day off, and is actually a good sign that they're making so much money that they can just shut down for a day,
Totally.
which is tremendous, and showing how much money we're making off the World Cup, which is needed for these businesses. But yes, I do think it could be a subtle dig.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was also, there was the thankfully nothing happening in Boston today. Also, they gave the hashtag No Scotland, No Party, which was one of the Scottish rallying cries. So, yeah, I think a little bit of potential trolling going on there.
It was remarkable to see how the Scottish so quickly found out the Boston Irish pub scene and adopt it as their own.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Haven in JP is
Yes.
a proper Scottish pub, probably the only one around. There are 300,000 Irish pubs, though, that were ready to serve their Scottish cousins.
I think one of the things importantly, apparently, about the Dubliner that set them apart, this didn't happen everywhere, but they never ran out of beer. I mean, we were hearing that there were some places that legit ran out of beer, ran out of certain kinds of beers because of the rush, but the Dubliner, they kept the taps flowing.
They do it well there. They own quite a few bars in the Beacon Hill area. So I know the Dubliner well, and I know their sister pubs very well. They're not the kind of place to run out of Guinness.
Okay, well, I want to stay on the World Cup here in Boston just for one more moment. And something that, has been a landmark of sorts around here for some time, which is the cop slide. Mm-hmm. And as people from around the world, in particular the Scottish, were coming here, they seem to embrace the cop slide as a very important thing to do when you are here in Boston. What do we make of the cop slide essentially going international this week?
It really did solidify that this is now a part of the fabric of Boston. This is one of the things where Cheers and the cop slide, I think, is basically the bucket list for people who visit the city. Obviously in 2023 this went crazy online. Yeah. But I still will watch the video, the original one, anytime it comes up.
For folks who don't know, describe how this sort of became known as the cop slide in 2023.
There was a viral video in 2023 of a Boston police officer, still unnamed Boston police officer,
and still unnamed,
being violently ejected from the end of the cop slide in such a way that it is absolutely remarkable, and you should watch it over and over again.
I believe the quote that came from the police was that he did sustain injuries that needed to be addressed, but he didn't miss any time on the beat.
Yeah, you'd be surprised if he hadn't been injured. So this, of course, became very popular. But personally, I didn't realize how indelible the cop slide had become to Boston's reputation. And when newcomers come to the city, they think of that.
Incredible. It's like that. The Scots are showing up at Market Basket.
I know.
Like all these subtle.
Eating clam chowder, being like, I'm going to try this clam chowder I've heard of. It's kind of incredible. No, but the cop slide thing is kind of interesting because I feel like that was one of those types of stories when that sort of blew up in 2013, when you're talking about, Mike. I think if I'm being honest, I think I gave a little eye roll to it. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, it's a slide. They put it up near City Hall. It's sort of like sanctioned by the city. How fun could it be? Why is everybody making such a big deal about this? But to see it sort of organically growing and see it being embraced this way, I mean, all kidding aside, I think it kind of is an indelible piece of Boston. Now, I think that's a good thing in part because it has sort of become what it has become organically on its own. And it's like, on the one hand, you look at it, you go, well, why don't we have a Ferris wheel like lots of cities have? But you don't need a Ferris wheel when you have the cop slide. I mean, I think,
You're right. Yeah.
I actually think it's a good thing for the city.
Yeah, there was no, City Hall brain trust. There was no multi-million-dollar study that went into making this the newest Boston landmark.
Yeah. And I think part of that, I just wonder your thoughts on this before we move off the World Cup because, the Scotland fans have moved on and obviously there'll be a few more matches in Boston and, but I think we have some time now after this week to reflect on what happened with Boston. I think there is something to be said for a sense of both when we talk about something like the amount of money that the pubs were making to the rise of the cop slide and it kind of going international. There was some sort of fun brought here in a way that I don't know that a lot of people expected. And in some ways, I wonder if it's going to help us just kind of get our mojo back, just as a fun city. Do you have thoughts on that?
I hope so. I think that would be wonderful because we're certainly not, known for our level of fun.
Yeah. We're not now, but I mean,
No.
I don't think it was ever thus. I mean,
No.
to a certain extent it was, but I think there was a time when there was a little bit just more sheer fun that could happen in this city.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the combat zone in the 70s,
Well,
sure.
yeah, but that's...
But no, I
Exactly.
take your point. Boston has changed after this summer.
Do you think
in
so?
No, definitely. I think it's not just the Scots, not just the World Cup. And it's really not just the outdoor drinking zones and the 3 a.m. last calls and all the kind of experimentation around the liquor laws that we're trying to kind of experiment with here. It does seem like this summer of activity between 250 and Sail Boston and the Harbor Fest and like all of the mega events that are happening this summer, we're just going to be going. And if that momentum can keep up, and if the people of Boston want to keep it up, and that means the restaurant owners and the neighbors of those owners and the venue people, it really does come back to just, the restaurants have to stay open because the crowds want them to stay open.
Yeah.
It's going to take everyone rowing in the same direction.
All right. Well, you're listening to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Boston-based reporters Mike Deehan and Megan Johnson for our weekly roundup of some misfit news. We call it In Case You Missed It. Well, we're going to turn our gaze outside of Boston now. We're going to go to Texas, and I think this is the most insane story that I've heard in a long time, where a 3-year-old giraffe named Gracie literally went missing. Missing, as in this. First of all, we can get into this. Why is there a giraffe in Texas?
Yes. This is the most Florida, Texas story I've ever heard.
Yeah, so this giraffe went missing. Update, the giraffe apparently was found this morning.
She's been apprehended.
She was spotted at 7 a.m. local time this morning. But what do we make of Gracie the giraffe going missing for a number of days?
I'm happy for her. She wanted out. She wanted to be free.
Yeah, I don't know. Either it was terrifying for a 3-year-old. I don't know if a 3-year-old giraffe is a child or an adolescent or an adult,
Yes.
but it was probably maybe frightening if she's only ever been on this preserve, or she was having the absolute time of her life.
She was like, I want to get some freedom off this Texas ranch.
Well, here's a little sound from Reilly County Sheriff Nathan Johnson. This Nathan Johnson, I guess, was one of the people tasked with the search for Gracie. Here's what the sheriff had to say.
It found a way outside of the high game fence, and after that, it's been on a fling, just enjoying the more rugged parts of Reilly County. I chuckled when I got the first call because it's my first missing giraffe case.
It's his first. Now, the part that you don't hear here, and he's been quoted in a couple of places saying this, and this is the part that I find the best part of this entire thing. So he has noted this is his first giraffe case, but he's also gone on to say, I've had wildebeests, I've had water buffalo, I've had monkeys, I've had zebras, all go missing. Sometimes we recover them. Sometimes we don't.
I'd have to imagine, though, that the giraffe may stand out a bit more than the other animals.
Well, literally and figuratively.
But also, again, monkeys and zebras.
Zebras.
Again, in Texas. What is going on here?
Sounds like a fun preserve.
Yeah, no, it is. Apparently, it's like a private facility, and they breed and raise exotic animals. And, so in that regard, I guess it makes sense that this particular sheriff has had to respond to zebras going missing and buffalo and monkeys and now a giraffe. But we're happy the giraffe was found. Do we think people ought to be doing this in general?
If it becomes a Tiger King situation, I'm not so sure, but
Does that
I'll
mean
watch
she jumped the fence?
Yeah, I think she wandered from a ledge.
Yeah, there's so many. I have so many questions.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, if you're a giraffe, you can see what you're missing in a way I suppose other animals can't, right? So it's like there's a little bit motivation to hop the fence at that point.
# wanderlust.
All right. Well, we're gonna go international, and a big piece of news that folks might have missed that happened in Australia. We love world records here at the Curiosity Desk, and a new Guinness World Record was set by a man named Joseph McGrail Baitup in Australia. Now, by day, his profession is he's an air conditioner cleaner. He's also an honorary town crier, and it was his role as an honorary town crier that led him to break the world record. He is now officially the world's loudest man. The world's loudest man. He set a record, the loudest shout ever by an individual. We have a little clip of the world's loudest man now. Obviously, we've had to adjust the volumes here so that people don't have bleeding from their ears and such. But here's a little taste of what he's all about.
Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah!
There you go. That's the world's loudest man.
That's yelling all right.
That's him saying, oh, yay, which is, I guess, his work as a town crier is where he gets the oh, yay stuff. But for the world record, he yelled, now. That was the word he yelled.
You want the one punchy
What do we make of
syllable.
somebody? What do we make of somebody going for a world record as the world's loudest man? Are we feeling like he's a true champion, or do you feel like he's wasting his time?
I don't know how much time's being wasted. If I would wonder how much time Guinness is wasting recording these things. I think he only benefits.
He needs to get into voiceover work. Like, what's he doing in the HVAC business?
Well, he does the town crier thing.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the most remarkable parts of this story for me, so there's a few things here. One, there had been a previous record already, which is apparently still owned now because the previous world's loudest human was a woman. She was a teacher from Northern Ireland who broke the world record by yelling quiet, which is fantastic. So he's now the world's loudest person and the world's loudest man. She retains the title of world's loudest woman. But the other thing that's crazy with this guy is that this is the second time he has owned a world record.
What's the other one?
Of those.
The other one, so he in 2019...
We know the type.
Yeah.
In 2019, he broke a speed record as an archer, shooting 10 arrows in like 60 seconds or something.
That is completely different.
Totally different.
That's
wow.
So you got this guy. I mean, I guess the answer, Megan, to you is that he's in the HVAC business because it's able to finance his dreams to break all kinds of world records.
See, the trades are in demand now.
The trades are in demand indeed. This is the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Mike Deehan and Megan Johnson, Boston-based reporters for our weekly news roundup. In case you missed it. Another thing folks might have missed is something that is apparently the latest trend in the maxing trend. We're in the summer of maxing. Everything gets the maxing label with 2 X's.
Everything.
So the newest one right now is bald maxing is apparently back. Mike, I'm going to turn to you on this one for no particular reason and ask you if you can weigh in on your thoughts of the rise of bald maxing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a rise as it is that people are noticing this. I don't know. When I read that, it was one of those good Wall Street Journal feature stories looking at culture, looking at changes. And yes, the drugs are more available. Turkish hair transplants are a thing in a way that they weren't many years ago. But I can't imagine that anyone in the last, 2 generations of balding men who have shaved their heads to cut it off at the pass haven't thought of this already. This is not
new.
I think this is, first Gen Zers go bald. Let's freak out and make it a brand new thing when it's literally happened to every generation since. Gen X are probably the first ones to really, bick their heads instead of the comb-overs of the previous generation.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Gen X, that was a true innovation to a certain extent.
People would just do, the side part, no matter how much they did or didn't have, as if it was the law. And Gen X started shaving down. Personally, I just buzz every couple days.
That's your way?
It's totally fine. Yeah, I mean, calling it maxing, this kind of new social emphasis is something. But there is something to the social media side of it, where younger people are finding community or finding drugs or going down weird health and fitness routes that they probably shouldn't.
I feel like it's probably really liberating.
I think that's what
I can't even imagine how incredible it must feel to not have an entire bush on top of your head.
This is what
pretty
you
good.
You have.
Yeah,
you could shave your head.
I can't go back, but you guys can join me.
Would you ever shave your head?
Absolutely not.
Why?
No, because I feel like I would look like a goblin. But I feel like 3 of my brothers have lost their hair and have shaved their head, and I think it's actually quite liberating for them.
Do you think it was hard for them though to go?
I think Yes, I think so. Yes.
I think it is, and I think, I'm sort of with you, Mike, on the idea.
No, you're not. Look at that on top of your head.
Well,
you're not with me at all, Edgar.
No. I'm with you in so much as it's not necessarily a new thing. But I do wonder about it in terms of as a counterpoint in particular to a moment in time right now where the looks maxing thing is a real thing, where this idea, I think in part, you could say fueled by social media, but I think also because so much of the way we're interacting with the world is with an image of ourselves that we have some control over. The idea of how you look and maximizing exactly how you look, which, I'm going to say from my standpoint is probably a negative thing to be too obsessed with it. You know what I mean? I think as a counterpoint, I think there is something to be said for saying, like, hey, just a reminder, you can embrace this and you can shave your head and it's cool.
One of the things what did strike me seriously about that story was that it really is one of the first things that you can't change. You can lose weight, you can get your teeth fixed, you can get your eyes lasered, you can change a lot about yourself. You can't really do anything about your hairline without, more modern treatments and surgeries and things like that. And it comes at a fairly insecure point of a man's life, which is just littered with insecurities to begin with. So that did kind of strike home where, I can definitely see someone in their 30s, they think they're okay, they look fine, they always have looked fine, and now they can't do anything about this.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end on this note. Something that you can do something about. This happened Saturday. Folks might have missed this one, but in a California campground at Camp Edison at Shaver Lake, about 50 miles from downtown Fresno, a camper went to use the toilet. They dropped their sunglasses into the toilet. They tried to get their glasses from the toilet, and they fell down into this vaulted toilet and were down there for 15 minutes before they were rescued. What do we make of this? Would you go after, you're wearing glasses. Would you even go after your glasses, let alone sunglasses, Mike?
No, and that's because of the description of what this vault toilet was. A waterless, flushless, septic vault.
Do not go in there. I won't even, if I drop something behind the toilet, I'm like, see you later.
Is there something that you could drop into this toilet that you would actually go after? Or is this one of these things where it's like, if that goes in there, it is lost forever, like your hair if you're going there?
If it was my prescription glasses, because I'm so blind, I would think about it, but I would try to grab some rubber gloves first. That's dark.
You think wedding rings or jewelry or something like that, but that must be hard. He must have thought that he could potentially easily just slip.
And you gotta hope that he slipped. The idea, it's like I'm picking.
Well, we have to question the size
now I'm
of the hole.
picturing the scene from Train Spotting.
What is the size of the hole? What is the size of the man?
So many questions.
They better have been expensive sunglasses.
I feel like we need more reporting on this story. We'll put the two of you on it. All right, we've been speaking with Axios Boston's Mike Deehan and Boston-based writer and reporter Megan Johnson all about some of the, shall we say, slightly askew headlines from this week. Thank you both for being with us for this ramble through the news. Up next, horseshoe crab blood has been used for key medical advances over the last several decades, but our next guests say it's time to switch to an alternative. This is the Curiosity Desk live from the Boston Public Library. Stay with us.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, remembering Clive Davis, the music industry titan with a golden ear, a star maker who helped shape American music from Janis Joplin to Bruce Springsteen to Whitney Houston. Then President Trump ran on draining the swamp. Instead, his blue reflecting pool has become one. A patriotic showpiece turned swampy saga of algae, blame, and spectacle. That and more on The Culture Show's Week in Review today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Ski and Tennis, offering indoor skiing and snowboarding this summer with Boston Metro's only immersive simulator experience. Available in the Newton location. Learn more online at bostonskiandtennis.com. And the International Institute of New England, an advocate of refugees and immigrants in Boston since 1924, serving thousands of our newest neighbors annually. IINE.org.
You You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are live from the Boston Public Library, and we are also streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, horseshoe crabs, you could say, are the original Massachusetts blue bloods, given that they've been around these parts for a couple 100 million years, give or take. And that special blue blood has been a key component in some pretty big medical breakthroughs and advances over the decades. These so-called living fossils have survived every mass extinction in our planet's history. But my next guests worry that their future could be in peril. Between their use in the medical world and as bait for other sea creatures, we've seen a significant drop in the horseshoe crab population since the early 1900s. Here in Massachusetts, there's a bill, H5266, an act to end the taking of horseshoe crabs for bait that aims to address the population decline. With me right now at the BPL are the leaders of the Massachusetts Horseshoe Crab Collaborative, working to get this bill going through the State House, Sharl Heller and Frank Mand, President and Vice President of the Southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barrens Alliance. More info at horseshoecrabs.org. Sharp, Frank, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
So let's talk about horseshoe crabs. You know, we sort of mentioned that they've been used over the last several decades in medical events. Like, what is it about their blood? How is it and how has it been used? Can you just give us a sense of that, of why it's important?
Without getting too technical, horseshoe crab blood has a substance that can detect bacterial endotoxins. It's so sensitive that comparatively it could detect 1 grain of sand in an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
So pretty sensitive then, yeah.
It's amazingly sensitive, and there's not a person in this room or among your listeners who hasn't benefited from horseshoe crab blood.
That's amazing.
It's amazing because these creatures evolved before the continents divided 450 million years ago.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
And another interesting fact is the oldest horseshoe crab fossils are found in Utah.
In Utah?
Yes, because that used to be an ocean, a shallow ocean years ago, and that's where they lived.
Okay, so they've been around, they've been survivors. We found this amazing thing to do with their blood. Why do we need this conservation effort now? What's going on with the population?
Well, first of all, the population is at a level that we consider functionally extinct. They're not serving their role in the web of life. They're not. They are responsible for either the health and vitality of many other species or the lack of that vitality, including many migrating shorebirds and things like that. So though there's been management efforts that have tried to balance fisheries and biomedical and things with their preservation, it's at such a low level that it's really not succeeding, we believe. And that's why if you ask individuals that were here in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that is 1940s, 50s, and 60s, on the beaches, they would be amazed that they're gone. We've heard that quote many times. I couldn't believe, seeing the numbers that used to be there, that they're gone because the beaches were crowded with them during the spawning season. And maybe we took them for granted then, but now we've learned so much more about how we're all interrelated with species and substances and biology and biodiversity that we understand that their loss and their breaking of that web affects all of us, not only migrating shorebirds. Eventually these things affect humans, and so we're fighting as strong as we can to stop that.
What do we know and not know about the scope of this population decline? Like, to hear you say it, it's, you know, there's the part with this kind of stuff, I think, you know, the environment's obviously very complicated. And there's the part you can do with your own eyes and ears, as you say. People in the 40s and 50s would be surprised now if they walked the beach and didn't see horseshoe crabs in the numbers that they once did. But do we have a sense of how big the population was, how steep the decline in the population is, how many are out there? Are they just going somewhere else? Like, what do we know?
We know a lot about how many horseshoe crabs used to be on our beaches because there are all kinds of records. And unfortunately, these records are because of the management of the horseshoe crabs through the horseshoe crab eradication program that was started in the 1940s through the Commonwealth, used to pay towns to kill horseshoe crabs. Children used to be employed at 2.5 cents a crab to kill horseshoe crabs. And we have records of like the Duxbury eradication program, where in one day, it was called the Duxbury Horseshoe Crab Roundup. They would kill 6,000, 7,000 horseshoe crabs in 3 days. And since then, the bait, commercial bait harvest kicked in for the whelk fishery. And then on top of that, starting in the 70s, we had the biomedical labs realizing that their blood was valuable.
Gotcha.
So here in Massachusetts, we have one of the smaller populations of any state along the Atlantic seaboard. We have a bait take that is higher than most any other state, and we have 2 biomedical firms that are using horseshoe crabs, bleeding them.
Got it. So this all adds up for you, and you say, okay, this is too much stress on the horseshoe crab population here in Massachusetts. There's too much harvesting between being harvested for bait and being harvested to use the blood for medical purposes.
One of the sad things and difficulties we have is that most of the evidence we have from that period is negative. It's how many crabs were taken to be killed, how many were taken off to dumps, landfills, how many kids earned their little 2.5 cents.
What do people have against horseshoe crabs?
Well, they were perceived as a lot of things in the past, in stereotypical ways or folkloric ways, such as they thought they were eradicating clams and things like that. They do feed on clams, so the clammers didn't want them.
I see.
So, but at the same time, we really didn't have a sense of why they were there. I kind of relate it to the bison, the buffalo, which has gotten so much renewed attention.
How so?
There were so many of them that we took for granted.
You figured you could do anything you wanted.
They talked about them, a thunder would come over the horizon preceding their sight. That was essentially horseshoe crabs. They covered the beaches.
Yeah.
So people didn't expect they could do anything, and so they took a very crude approach to it.
Yeah, I always think about the book Moby Dick, and there's that passage in Moby Dick where he's going through just how many whales there are. He's like, you'd never be able to get rid of all the whales, and of course we know, what's happened with whaling as well. So.
Right, as you mentioned earlier, we had these 5 or 6 extinction events.
Yeah.
Suffocation, annihilation, volcanism, all these things, and horseshoe crabs survived those.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But they're not going to be able to survive unless humans, because humans are that final extinction.
I just want to add one thing. We were talking about stressors on horseshoe crabs. Horseshoe crabs are harvested while they're spawning. They're picked up on the beaches. These are very harmless, passive animals.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is take your skiff along the beach, and you can load up your whole boat with these very docile creatures. And because they're taken when they're spawning,
it hurts the population even more. Yeah.
And I'll just point out, too, that in Massachusetts, we had lobster legislation to protect lobsters bearing eggs.
Yeah.
And yet, here's this creature that is more valuable to humans through human health, and yet we don't have the same protections for horseshoe crabs.
We point out the fact that their blood is very valuable in the medical sciences. So what's the plan here? What do you? If we need their blood, don't we need to harvest them?
And we don't anymore. There's a very small percentage that still needs horseshoe crab blood testing, but the vast majority of those tests can be performed with synthetics that are widely available, and most of the big laboratories are now shifting over to that production. But Massachusetts has a few laboratories or bleeding centers that essentially that's infrastructure they don't want to let go of. So it's a financial decision only. It's not one in the best interest of the habitat, of biodiversity, or of the horseshoe crab. It's one that they want to hold on to those profits as long as they can.
And I'll just point out, too, to follow up what Frank said, if you go to the 2 biomedical firms' websites, they both tout their switch over to synthetics. So they are ready. They're geared up to do this. They're doing it now. And we believe it's just a profit.
Gotcha. So it's a financial decision. That is your position on it right now. We're talking with Sharl Heller and Frank Mand about horseshoe crabs and their future here in Massachusetts. What would the bill do, real quick? What's the hope with this bill?
Well, this is an interesting story because we submitted a bill. It was called an Act to End the Use of Horseshoe Crabs for Bait.
Okay.
It went through the Joint Committee of Environment and Natural Resources, and it came out stronger. We were completely surprised by this, but the Joint Committee is following the new legislation that passed in New York and Connecticut, and the bill will phase out both the biomedical and the bait.
So I want to see that I get this right. Your initial bill was just not for bait, but it would be okay for medical harvesting?
Right. Yes. We would like to see the end of both, and we would make that case very strongly that should happen, but we didn't try to push too hard. We only asked for the bait take to be ended, and instead it came out, to our surprise, where the legislature was so convinced of our argument, I'd like to say.
I think they were.
That they decided we should get with New York and we should be a leader, not a follower in this legislation. So right now, that's what it is. It would be a phased out of all types of harvesting.
Gotcha. And so where do things stand now, and what's the sort of front line of your battle at this point in time?
Well, we have the support of at least 26 legislators in the House that wanted it added to the environmental bond bill. We don't know really what happens next. We're not experts in what goes on at the State House.
Just lovers of horseshoe crabs.
So we're really hoping that we can still manage to get this passed. We've had amazing support, and I just want to send out a big thank you for the people that are in the Association of Massachusetts Bird Clubs. They are involved. They've been wonderful at contacting legislators and letting everyone know how important an issue this is.
Because they understand that direct connection between migrating shorebirds and horseshoe crab eggs, which used to be in such supply that they fattened up on their way to the Arctic, and now they actually avoid the area because they have learned that those eggs aren't available.
We are all connected. All right, we've been speaking with Sharl Heller and Frank Mand from the Massachusetts Horseshoe Collaborative. If you're interested in this, you can get more info about what that's all about at horseshoecrabs.org. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Up next, Henry David Thoreau joins us over Zoom. Surprising embrace of modern technology there from Henry. We'll see what he's been up to these past few hundred years. This is the Curiosity Desk, live from the BPL. Stick around.
I'm Arun Roth. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, fans are headed to Gillette or Boston Stadium for today's World Cup match between Norway and France. And GBH's Sarah Bedencourt joins us for a look at how the U.S. Supreme Court's TPS ruling is landing locally. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, helping professionals stay competitive with 2 to 3 day courses on AI essentials, strategic leadership, and more. Details at executive.mit.edu. And Standish Village in Dorchester's Lower Mills, providing assisted living residents with programs designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. Learn more at standishvillage.com/programs.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're live from the Boston Public Library and streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, let's be honest, the job market right now is tough, and people are getting creative with their side hustles. Some are babysitting, some are tutoring, others are reselling vintage finds on Poshmark. Our next guest is taking strange side hustles to a whole other level. That is Henry David Thoreau. The twist, she's never read Walden, never read Civil Disobedience, and yet insists she is the perfect candidate to be the next Henry David Thoreau. Well, right now, joining us over Zoom, comedian, writer, director, and now Henry David Thoreau interpreter, impersonator, imposter, Melissa Aquiles. Melissa, I got to be honest, I mean, welcome, but I'm surprised Henry David Thoreau uses Zoom. It's an embrace of modern technology I did not see coming.
Well, when you're a remote Henry David Thoreau impersonator and you don't live near Walden Pond, you have to embrace the modern technology enough so that you can reach your constituents.
That's a great point. So you are in New York, and is this one of the reasons why you thought you would be a good candidate for this job that is so associated with Concord, Massachusetts?
I know maybe it's a bit controversial, but I thought I would be great because well, I'm available, and I like free room and board. I like peace and solitude, and I love laundry and donuts.
So, how did you get the job? Was it a tough interview process? I mean, how does one become Henry David Thoreau?
So I started my campaign, and it drew a lot of attention online, and people wanted this for me, even though it wasn't an actual paid position at the pond. And then it just garnished so much support. So then eventually I reached out to Walden Pond, and I got to meet with the former and current Henry David Thoreau impersonator. Richard Smith was the former, who retired recently, and Brent Reilly, who took over. And they welcomed me into the Thoreau Society with open arms. So I would say a very welcoming community, and it wasn't that difficult, actually. The most difficult part was driving to Concord.
So do you think this is just going to be a quick summertime gig, a little dalliance, or is this something, are you going to stick around here with this? Virtually, of course.
Virtually remote swing when Brent isn't available. And of course, there are only 3 times out of the year that the Henry David Thoreau impersonator makes his appearance at Concord, at Walden Pond. And that is, of course, New Year's Day. And I learned this because Brent taught me so much that day, and Richard. It's New Year's Day, his birthday, July 12th, which is coming up, and the melon party, which I don't know the date of the melon party, but there is allegedly a melon party in the fall.
So now I've heard that since you took the job, you have begun for the first time to start reading some actual Henry David Thoreau. How has that been going?
I've been slowly getting through it. It's a dense book, and to be fair, I haven't had my solitude on the pond yet. So I haven't written it yet, arguably, in my journey. So theoretically, he didn't know what Walden was before he spent time on the pond. So I think I'm being historically accurate here. But I am on page 44. You can watch me read it in real time on my Christmas Yule log on YouTube.
Why the Christmas Yule log?
Well, the goal was to read all of it in a Christmas Yule log. But it turns out I'm a very slow reader. That's because it's a dense book, and I do like to take my time with dense material. So I tried my best, but it did take me 2 hours to get through like 50 pages. Again, really small text, and I tried my best.
Yeah. Are you currently on or near the Christmas Yule log, and or do you have a copy of the book anywhere near you? Basically what I'm getting at here is it possible for you to maybe do a little reading for us now, Henry?
I would love to, and I do have a beautiful copy that was gifted to me by Brent Reilly. Thank you so much. Weirdly enough, I have so many copies of Walden now. They're probably my most owned book. But I would love to read a passage if you'll so be inclined to hear.
Yeah, take it away.
Okay. Most of the luxuries and many of the so-called comforts of life are not only indispensable, but positive hindrances to the elevation of mankind. With respect to luxuries and comforts, the wisest have ever lived a more simple and meager life than the poor. The ancient philosophers, Chinese, Hindu, Persian, and Greek, were a class than which none has been poorer in outward riches, none so rich in inward. We know not much about them. It is remarkable that we know so much of them as we do. The same is true of the more modern reformers and benefactors of their race. None can be an impartial or wise observer of human life, but from the vantage ground of what we shall call voluntary poverty. Of a life of luxury, the fruit is luxury, whether in agriculture or commerce or literature or art. There are nowadays professors of philosophy, but not philosophers. Yet it is admirable to profess because it was once admirable to live. To be a philosopher is not merely to have subtle thoughts, nor even to found a school, but so to love wisdom as to live according to its dictates, a life of simplicity, independence, magnanimity. I knew I would mess up that word, and I don't know why I wrote it. And trust. It is to solve some of the problems of life, not only theoretically, but practically. The success of great scholars and thinkers is commonly a courtier-like success, not kingly, not manly. They make shift to live merely by conformity, practically as their fathers did, and are in no sense the progenitors of a nobler race of men.
Henry, I gotta stop you. It's too good. It's too
really
good.
good.
I can't
believe
take
I
it
wrote it.
anymore. That is unbelievable. I mean,
thank you.
Well, listen. One of the things I love about the Curiosity Desk is our audience is very smart. And so we just got a text noting that Thoreau did spend time in New York. Wrote a letter to his mom from New York saying, "I do not like their cities and forts. I want a whole continent to breathe in and a good deal of solitude and silence." So, there is some precedent for you spending time in New York.
I'm in my New York era, my Henry David Thoreau
New York era.
Impersonator life. Yeah, exactly. So one day maybe I'll move to Concord, but I think right now I'm still in my New York era.
Very good stuff. So let's talk about besides being Henry David Thoreau, in all seriousness, Melissa, how does this fit into the rest of what you do in your life?
I guess I'm just a little clown. So I like having fun. I like bringing people joy. Does it necessarily fit squarely into the rest of my life? I would say no. But I do drag all the time. I'm currently in a drag musical called Boy Band the Musical. And besides bringing whimsy and joy and fun and laughter and me being the butt of the joke, I would say it's not particularly drawn to any other part of my life.
Yeah. Has this thing gotten bigger than you thought it was gonna when you first started this joke, so to speak? Do you know what I mean? Has it taken on a life of its own?
Yes, it has taken on a life of its own. When we first started, we didn't think it would actually become like a campaign to get me the job. And then I was very scared because I don't want to take a real historian's job. And I never wanted Walden Pond to dislike me or think I was making fun of a historical figure or a beautiful place or any of that. But everybody has been very kind, and it took on a life of its own, and I had a lot of bad news for a while because I wasn't getting the job because I wasn't qualified, which was fair. But to finally end at Walden Pond with the Henry David Thoreau impersonators and meeting all the staff, that took on a life of its own, and that has been fun.
Awesome. All right, we've been speaking with Melissa Aquiles. You can find her at Walden Pond sometimes, perhaps, or performing at an upcoming show. She said, as they said in New York, Boy Band, the official musical. For more information, check out the website, www.melissaaquiles.com, Cape and Islands, and, of course, GBH News here in Boston. You can hear it starting July 4th every Saturday at 2 on GBH, NEPM, and CAI. And the host is the one and only Jeremy Siegel, who is now with us for a preview. Hey, Jeremy,
hello,
congratulations
Edgar.
on the new show.
To be here. Thank you.
Welcome to be here with us. That's great to have you. So tell us a little bit about the show.
So it's going to be a road trip across Massachusetts. And as you mentioned, this is a collaboration between 3 public media stations, GBH, NEPM in Western Mass, and CAI on the Cape and Islands. And it's a true collaboration. We're going to be going to every station, hearing from reporters on the ground in every corner of the state, bringing important news stories, the biggest conversations happening around Massachusetts, but then also a whole lot of fun. Like, I'm really excited. In a couple weeks, we're going to be going to the Brimfield Antiques Fair, the largest outdoor antique market in the country. So it's going to be a lot of fun, culture, music, news, everything you can imagine from every corner of Massachusetts, really bringing us together and making people everywhere, no matter where you're listening, a small town in Western Mass, up on the Cape on vacation, in Boston on your way to work, that you feel represented in this show.
So now when we say road trip across Massachusetts, is this a bit of a metaphor, or are you literally putting mileage on your car?
I'm putting a lot of mileage on my car.
Are
Luckily,
you getting
actually,
reimbursed for that
I was recently reporting in Worcester, and my engine died, and I had to have it replaced recently. So at least I'm kind of starting from scratch engine-wise. But yeah, no, I'm going to be on the ground a lot doing reporting in communities all around. And on our first episode, we're actually talking all about July 4th.
Well, yeah,
really
I was
exciting.
going to ask you, what's on the first episode? Because it is the 4th of, you're launching on the 4th of July. It's a pretty big 4th of July here in America.
Yes,
you know, so.
we decided why not launch on America's most important day? Why not take America's birthday as our own birthday?
Yeah.
But this first episode, it's all about the 4th of July, the role that Massachusetts played in independence, but also what's happening today and how prices for hosting a 4th of July barbecue, for putting on fireworks shows, those are going up. So, Edgar, I thought I would do a little bit of a quiz with you about some of these numbers behind how much 4th of July costs.
Well, we love a quiz.
So here's an easy one to start.
Desk, Jeremy.
If you're hosting a 4th of July party, will
Yes.
this be your most expensive 4th of July ever?
You're asking, so you're just asking yes or no?
Yes, yes or no. Most expensive or not as expensive as years past?
I would say, given that we've been around for 250 years, relatively speaking, I would say no, it will not.
It is the most expensive on paper, but if you take into account inflation and rising wages, you're not doing so bad. Okay, let's get into individual items on the menu for the 4th.
Okay,
barbecue classics: chicken, pork, beef. Which of these items, chicken, pork, or beef, has gone up more in price over the past year than anything else?
Ooh, I know that beef has gone up, but chicken has gone up quite a bit too. I don't buy as much. I'm going to go with beef.
Beef?
Yeah.
You're right. It's up 14% compared to last year. Chicken, not too bad, 3%.
It
Pork,
depends.
also only
I've got
3%.
a bone to pick with the fact that chicken
Pun
thighs.
intended.
Well, yeah, chicken thighs are rising at a rate that does not make sense to me.
Well, now that
Whereas
people have
chicken,
discovered that chicken
drumstick,
thighs are
exactly.
good.
I think that
Yeah.
one has nothing to do with inflation. That has to do with they're going like people really like the thighs. We're going to jack the price up. I say right now go for the drumstick.
All
it's
right.
very affordable.
Well done. You got that one right. So now let's go beyond the 4th of July party to fireworks shows. The biggest one in Massachusetts is, of course, the Boston Pops 4th of July extravaganza. It takes place every year at the Hat Show on the Charles River. This year, they're going huge for America 250.
That makes sense.
What is the total cost of this event? I'll give you A, B, C here. A, $2 million. B, $4 million, or C, $8 million.
$2 million, $4 million, or $8 million for the 250th fireworks spectacular. I see Jared Bowen's joining me up here right now.
You're gonna call in a friend for help on this one?
I'm gonna phone a friend. No, I think it's probably $8 million. So, Jared, the question on the table from Jeremy here is $2 million, $4 million, or $8 million for the fireworks spectacular? Do we think this year?
Oh, $8 million.
I'm saying 8.
$8 million. Well done, both of you. That is twice as much as a regular year, and that's because they want to go as big as possible for Massachusetts 250. So that's just a slice of what you'll hear some of on the first episode of In Common, launching next Saturday.
There you go. It's $1 million just for the Jared Bowen fireworks to have my big face over the Esplanade.
I want to see you shoot up on the Esplanade with them. That would be quite the sight.
Your name spelled out in fireworks. Exactly. Jared. That's Jeremy Siegel, host of In Common for Berkshires to the Bay, a new statewide collaboration. As we were saying, every Saturday at 2 starting July 4th, and Jared is with us now. Jared, hi, we're here at the Boston Public Library. It's Friday. That means Week in Review for the Culture Show, which I always look forward to. What are you talking about today?
Well, we'll start in Washington, much to talk about, where culture is rearing its head in face of the Trump administration with lots of projections, artistic projections that are taking place this week. A lot have to do with the reflecting pool, that piece of evolving public art. We'll talk
That's
about
one way to say it, yeah.
We'll talk about the legacies of both Clive Davis and James Burrows. And we will talk about Dolly Parton. I think there was a lot of us who are relieved that Dolly Parton is back on the scene. She disappeared, and so is Beyonce. They both have pretty significant messages for, well, Dolly has her fun message, and Beyonce has a very significant message for her fans.
All right, that's excellent stuff. That is Jared Bowen and the Culture Show, their Arts and Culture Week in Review right here at the library in just about 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere. That about does it for us for now. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aiden Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Lawson, Nicole Garcia. Our intern is Mukta Dharmapurikar. Patty Daniels is our Berkshires, and Jamie Bologna is our Bay. Our engineer is John LaClaw Parker. Special thanks to Andrew Massowa, Patrick Lally, Matty Geyer, Bradley Lewis, the whole BPL team. Thanks to our host at the Newsfeed Cafe, the team at the Lennox across the street, and all of you who came out to see us at the library. It's always great to see you here. We will be right back on Monday on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. Can't wait that long. We got the podcast version of the show. You could always check that out. You get it wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. Singer-songwriter Janice Ian was just 15 years old when she found herself in the limelight, forced to overcome industry misogyny and homophobia. Watch Janice Ian, Breaking Silence, tomorrow at 9 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Culture Show news desk, I'm Henry Santoro. It's New Music Friday, and today we have a spectacular new tune from Pulitzer and Grammy-winning artist Rhiannon Giddens. It's called Carolina Rain.
Baby, where'd the time go? Feel it flying by. All that work I thought I had to do.
Giddens announced that her new album, Hope is the Thing with Feathers, will be released on September 18th on None Such Records. The 10-song LP was inspired by the beauty of people coming together and drawing strength from each other, and was intentionally recorded live with no frills and no overdubs, just pure and essential music that captures the feeling of community, clarity, as well as the joy and power of creating together.
Sweet sorghum cane. Listen to the whippoorwills and watch the fireflies. Wash ourselves in Carolina rain.
The 10 songs explore the bloodline that make American music what it is today and follows it through the community-oriented spirit in which it was written and recorded. In many ways, the album tells the story of the last 20 years of Giddens' life.
Why chase that dollar? My baby's got a heart of gold. I know that we will find ourselves again.
And if I say so myself, I think Rolling Stone sums up who Giddens is as well as anyone, saying her work has become a foundational influence for a generation of younger black roots musicians. As mentioned, Hope is the Thing of Feathers is out September 18th. So until then, we'll sit back and enjoy Carolina Rain.
Watch the fireflies. Wash ourselves in Carolina rain.
If GBH was a music station, this song would be in heavy rotation. That's this edition of the GBH Weekly Friday Afternoon Culture Cast. I'm Henry Santoro. Next up, The Culture Show, with my friend and yours, Jared Bowen, live at the Boston Public Library.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, it's a new MAGA movement, Make Algae Great Again. President Trump's reflecting pool renovation was supposed to shimmer in a hue of patriotic blue. Instead, it's gone green, blistering with algae and peeling paint. Then there are the artists, with song parodies like What's It All About, Algae, to projections of swamp creatures now dotting the nation's capital. From there, we reflect on the legacy of Clive Davis, the record executive with the golden ear who helped make stars of Barry Manilow, Patti Smith, and Whitney Houston. Then another farewell, James Burrows, the Cheers co-creator and legendary television director whose ear for timing, rhythm, and ensemble helped define a half-century of American comedy. Plus, what if Cape Cod became a launch pad for the next great American play? Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Paula Vogel and Huntington Theater legend Michael Massow are making that bet, creating a new waterfront center for playwrights and theatrical composers. We take on all that and more right now on our Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Welcome to The Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley. I'm Lisa Simmons.
And we are going over the latest arts and culture headlines in our Week in Review, starting with President Trump and his project management of Washington's reflecting pool, which may surface as one of the greatest metaphors of modern history. Its once shimmering waters have become a swampy, bilgy, $15 million fiasco that is now a reflection of government ineptitude. Within days of its quote-unquote renovation, it was full of algae with big globs of paint floating to the surface, and Trump claiming vandals were responsible for the pool's putridness. It's become a muse for musicians who are releasing parodies such as Scum Together, I Shall Be Resealed, and What's It All About, Algae?
What's it all about, algae? Is it just that our leaders are fools? What's it all about? Is there any doubt, algae? Are we meant not to paint shallow pools, or are they meant to be green?
So that, by the way, was musician and composer Jonathan Jensen. And the swamp has now also become a canvas. Guerrilla projections have been popping up across Washington. The collective VJ Bombs has rendered cabinet officials and Trump allies as fish, crocodiles, and vampire bats all over the Capitol, from the reflecting pool to the Kennedy Center. Well, this maybe gives us an indication of why the Trump administration has been taking on arts and culture so heavily, because arts and culture are like the weeds that grow up through the cement. They will just keep climbing toward the sun and climbing toward the light if they have something to grow on and about. And so this has been really fascinating to see this amalgamation that's happening in Washington right this week. Maybe let's start with the projections, and then we'll go back to the music, and there are so many great titles we want to talk about. But the projections are fascinating because there is this new protest movement where people used to stand in front of something or spray paint something or drop a banner in front of something, but now they just need some battery-powered lights, and in the middle of the night they can have a crocodile Pete Hegseth in the reflecting pool.
Or an upside-down bat. Over by the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, I think it's this VJ Bombs group started by projecting onto the tarp that is still covering the space where Trump's name has been removed by court order, and apparently the administration doesn't want us to see that it's been removed. And so they started projecting these, I think they're funny.
They're pretty hilarious, yes.
Onto first that tarp, and then all around the reflecting pool and every other place in D.C. and some of the high points. I mean, it's extremely clever.
It's incredibly clever. I mean, it's nothing new, right? Okay, we've seen this sort of like, political movement before and having this sort of like protest language, but now it obviously can go viral, right? So now we're seeing it everywhere. I love those tumbling letters coming down, on that tarp, and then the projection on all of the buildings in DC. But I mean, I think it's this metaphor, right, for all of this dysfunction. And if you just call it what it is, just take responsibility for whatever it is, then it will stop, right? But like you said, it just keeps growing and growing, because the more it gets denied and the more like the reflecting pool and everything else, it's just fodder for these incredibly creative people to come up with these parodies. And we need humor, right? I feel like now people need humor in order to just get through everything that's happening on a daily basis.
Well, and I think the humor is key here, because this is an administration that doesn't like to be the butt of the joke. They like to be in control of the punchline, and they like to be in control of the narrative, and here they are definitely not. And I want to point people to a project we talked about here on the Culture Show, documentary. It's called Projecting Protest. It was screened at Mass Art. By the way, I was just at because they're using humor to attack major subjects about immigration, certainly the Epstein files.
Yes.
They are incredibly cheeky and incredibly audacious as they make ties to the many Trump references to Epstein in the files that have been released so far.
I will note that they really pushed the envelope in that there is an 8647 projected. Yes. Okay, so if people are remembering, lots of people have gotten in trouble for any reference to 86. That would be President Trump. 47, President Trump, but 86 means kill or get rid of 47. And there was Comey, the former FBI, was he FBI director? Was
Yes.
his title?
Yes.
Yes, FBI director, who took a picture of stones spelling out 8647 on the beach, and is now, in court trying to fight for saying, I didn't say go kill Trump, but they're projecting this, is my point.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Like you can spin this, and that's the problem, and that's the spin. And I think there's this constant spin about there's vandals, and you're trying to kill me by saying something like that, where it's not. It's just sort of like this protest movement, but it's turned into this whole security issue, and people are getting arrested for taking something out of a pool or taking a picture and sharing that on social media. It's a way for them to sort of turn that narrative to their viewers and their base to say, we're right, you're wrong. And so there's two things here, right? There's the social media stuff that's going on, but there's also this constant narrative that's coming out of the administration that makes people feel like they're right and everyone else is wrong.
And the third, the constant creative fervor that we've been talking about. So let's go back to that pool, and let's go back to this new genre that has bloomed like the algae itself, which are these song parodies. Who knew there were so many? Here's another parody song about the reflecting pool. This is Green Water by the musician Patrick Fitzgerald, spoofing Black Water by the Doobie Brothers.
Well, if it heals, I don't care.
I like that, except for the ducks. That's a sad
know,
story.
that is a sad story.
We don't like animal death at all anywhere on this show, but this is really hilarious. I mean, you can call me algae.
Oh my gosh.
What's it all about? We talked about that algae. Slime after slime, with apologies to Cyndi Lauper.
I love that one.
This is hilarious to
do
see what's
you
rising
feel like
up.
I do? What a pool believes.
Oh,
I mean,
my favorite is the real Slime Shady. Eminem. Eminem.
Well, it changes the conversation. This is what
does.
culture does. And again, I think as I was thinking about all this week, as much as we're laughing, as much as we're marveling in the cleverness of people, this is exactly why an administration who doesn't want there to be a true examination of what's happening in the political realm wants to strangle culture, and this is the exact reason it can never happen.
Well, that's it. It's, again, the same thing about not taking responsibility for what's happening. And now they're draining it. And now we're going to have a whole thing about draining the swamp. I mean, it's just, you can't.
It writes itself.
It writes itself. It's really, it's incredible.
Well, we'll stay inside the Beltway now, where the president is courting a potential basketball bust. The Knicks championship victory lap is headed toward the White House, turning a routine sports ritual into something far more fraught, especially for black players who may have to make a public choice about whether to literally stand by President Trump. I didn't realize this until I was doing the research for this segment, but if you look at the constituency of NBA players, most of them are either independents or Democrats. Only about 10% of them are registered Republicans, and this is the reason during the Trump two administrations now, you have not seen NBA players go to the White House, as we see with many other teams when they win their championships. However, in this case, the Knicks team owner has accepted an invitation to the White House, no date set yet, and the players will have to make a choice.
Well, it's a couple things. The other thing to add is that most of the players are black and brown. And so whether or not they had taken a political stance, what is absolutely clear is that this president has been out there with racist remarks. Now, you can deny and say, I didn't know it was a joke, whatever it was. But the latest, of course, being insult when he sponsored the UFC event at the White House, and one of the UFC fighters insulted and disparaged former First Lady Michelle Obama. That was just a second ago. So now you're asking black and brown players to go to a White House that where the administration said nothing after that happened, and has said many other more despicable kinds of comments to black and brown people over his time in both Trump 1 and now Trump 2. Here's the other thing. James Dolan is the governor of the team. They moved away from the use of owner for the reason that the use of owner is a reflection back to enslaved times, and these are black and brown players, and usually most of the governors are white. So Dolan accepted without asking them.
Exactly. Well, that's the whole
that's
thing,
the
right?
Point.
They didn't.
Yes.
Before we get to you, Lisa, let's hear from James Dolan, the Knicks owner or governor, on speaking about on New York's WFAN Sports Radio last week about the team's White House visit plans.
We just did receive an invitation from the White House, which we accepted. We still have to figure out the details, et cetera. But, yes, of course. I mean, look, I invited the president to come down for the game. Right, he is a friend. I've known him for 30 years, and I'm very proud to bring the team to the White House.
Yep. You said you were privileged that a sitting president came to the Garden. First time ever for a finals game.
First time ever for any NBA finals. Yeah.
That's right.
And the players, of course, will remember that the president was booed when he was showed on the
not
Jumbotron.
Not only that, but it's the only game they lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then they saged the whole place. They had to sage it.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the climate now. Where you
right.
have the boss essentially saying this, and you have the public watching.
Well, this is the whole thing, right? No, they were never asked.
Mm-hmm.
They were never, and it's almost like you're going to go, and if you don't go, then it makes them look bad, right? So now it becomes this whole political statement because there was never any conversation.
Well,
about
before you even get to look bad, it says if you don't go. Because I what you. You know what I mean?
Own you.
Yeah.
And governor's not a better word. I mean, we saw this with Tim Thomas, right? We saw this with the Bruins player who didn't want to go to the White House with the Bruins when the Bruins won, and he said because it was Obama, and he said, "Oh no, it has nothing to do with Obama. It has everything to do with I don't like the way the federal government is owning." And that we all know that wasn't necessarily the case. So it's not the first time it's happened, but it is. It's putting the players in a very difficult situation.
Well, you also look at the politics of Dolan, who has this long-term friendship with the president, who is looking to see Madison Square Garden be part of this Penn Station renovation. So like everything else, there are business ties here to this as well. And yes, unfortunately, this team won't have the excuse of scheduling difficulties or other excuses that have been made over the years for why particular individuals didn't visit the White House. I mean, I'm suspicious about the fact that not a date has not been set yet. So you wonder how this is going to play out, because there are a lot of people waiting to see what they're going to do to possibly follow their lead.
And I hope
look
they
for
can
guidance.
do what they want to do. I hope they can make that decision themselves individually. If you want to go, if you
well,
don't
they
want
can.
to go.
They're grown
I mean,
people.
Right?
They can do
but
that.
I mean, it's not, but they're not going to get pushed. They're not going to be like,
well,
if
no,
you
that's
don't
going to
play,
whatever it's going to come down. There's going to be a controversy around it, and I think for some of the players, for many of the players, they're enjoying and appreciating the general unitedness that the Knicks victory has brought. And this is going to remind people there are some things that make us a little bit different, and we have to address in our personal lives as black and brown men in this country.
Exactly, but I also think on top of that, it's the Knicks and it's Mondami and it's all these other issues that are actually in play at them, at them going to the White House. I mean, it's just become this whole political situation
and cultural. Once again, following the first segment, and now this segment, sports is culture too. Sports guides so much. Sports culture guides so much of this country. So we will continue to follow that. Well, coming up on the Culture Show, remembering Clive Davis, the star maker with a golden ear who helped turn great voices into American icons, from Janis Joplin and Bruce Springsteen to Whitney Houston and Alicia Keys. That and more is next on the Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
250 years ago, Massachusetts ignited the American Revolution. You know the heroes, the legends, but there are still new stories to tell.
Lots of people have read The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. This is an opportunity to tell the story as we understand it to be true.
Discover our series From Colony to Commonwealth at gbh.org/America250.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Revolve Dance Project, presenting Revolutions, a celebration of live music and dance with original compositions and choreography. Sunday, June 28th at 2 and 6 at the Strand Theater in Providence. Ticket info at revolvedanceproject.com. And Native Plant Trust. More than 125 years of commitment to protecting New England's native plants. More information about how natives can support the web of life at nativeplanttrust.org.
And the Boston Speaker Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Pete Buttigieg, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, historian Doris Kearns-Goodwin, and financial journalist Andrew Ross Sorkin. BostonSpeakers.org.
If you made a gift to GBH this year, thank you. Your support keeps this great reporting coming all summer long. So, if you can, please consider making an additional gift by the end of the month, online at gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. She's the artistic and executive director of the Roxbury International Film Festival, which wraps up in-person screenings tonight with a gorgeous romantic comedy that I want to see based on everything I've read about it. And it continues with virtual screenings through next Thursday. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes Clive Davis, the man behind many of the biggest records and voices of the last half century. That, of course, was Whitney Houston, one of the many singers Clive Davis discovered and helped transform into a global star. He died Monday at 94, leaving behind a half-century-long legacy as one of the most powerful moguls in American music. His is a fascinating story as I was thinking about it, especially for the fact that he developed this very peculiar ability from a man who studied law right here at Harvard, actually, Harvard Law, to then find himself working for a record company and then cultivating his ear, because he had said that he listened to Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, but all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but over time, he developed this very skillful way of hearing new voices. And as Barry Manilow put it, he had the mind of a banker and the ears of a teenager, because that allowed him to be both shrewd business-wise and artistically inclined.
Well, what's interesting is that he left his first job as a lawyer at a white shoe firm and went to a record company because he was bored. He didn't know what he might find there. But to your point, Jared, he knew nothing about music. And so he set himself up as a person who was going to study this so that he would actually understand what the clients were all about. So he studied the Billboard charts. He analyzed what made a hit, and then put that all together and started, if not training his ear, just getting his ear to listen and be open to what he heard, which I think made him way open for what was in the future, because the company that he first started at, we were all into Broadway musicals, nothing wrong with it, but he realized that rock and roll was coming and we needed to pay attention to it.
I mean, it's amazing to be able to see that, right? To see that future. I mean, he was, I think, a visionary. I mean, he, leaving Columbia, starting Arista Records, I mean, and then going on from there and starting all of these other things. I mean, I think it takes a certain person to be able to understand that. I think you're right. It was really based in this sort of like data-driven analysis of everything. But I think he really is known for growing people, right? For not just being like signing somebody and saying, okay, you're now working for this label, but to actually helping them become a holistic, a performer. That's not without controversy, right? I mean, the record business is one of the hardest businesses to be in, and so you can't take away that other part of who he was. I mean, he was a gatekeeper in a way. He probably stopped people's creative spirit, but he did make singers larger than life. Whitney Houston, Alicia Keys says, this is who I am because of him. I mean, so there's this balance, but he was incredible. I mean, who has this length of time in the music industry over all of these decades.
And overcoming obstacles, too, obstacles of his own making. He was brought up on tax fraud charges earlier in the 70s.
Which I didn't know.
Yeah,
that's why he got fired, right?
Well, he had also been accused of siphoning off money from Columbia Records so that he could fund his child's bar mitzvah service. And there were other allegations that came about. I think some of them were kind of kept under the carpet. The New York Times had a piece this week about Whitney Houston. There is a part of being both the artistic ear and the showbiz ear, the showbiz eyes, where he once said to Bruce Springsteen, this is really going to work if you move around the stage more. Don't cling to the microphone. Bruce Springsteen did, and his performance, his aura in the room took off. But he really, as the New York Times piece reported, really drove Whitney Houston.
Yes.
It's not to say he's entirely responsible for what happened to her career, but this is the downside of stardom, too. And I think I was also struck by the fact that we know, let's go back to I Will Always Love You. And if you remember how that song began, and so many people argued, oh, you cannot have 40 seconds of a cappella on the radio. Well, let's be reminded of what 40 unaccompanied seconds on the radio sounds like.
If I should stay, I would only be in your way.
Well, we all know how this ends and how that story ended, but that was him saying, no, we're going in this direction with this song.
Well, because of her, who else could have done? Who else could have done that? I mean,
Nobody.
she's an incredibly talented.
It's a powerhouse talent. With regard to the controversy around his relationship with Whitney, he identified her at 19.
Yep.
He started working with her, signed her, took 2 years to come up with what he thought would be the right music for her and the right producers. All that is good. But what some people are saying now, some covertly, others not so much, is that she was a huge crossover artist, and that inside the record company, with his blessing, they worked to sort of drum out whatever signatory blackness, quote unquote, if you will, would be, so that she would be more acceptable to a broader audience. Now, what that translated into, if you may recall, Lisa, for black communities, they would say Whitney can't dance. I mean, that was all over everywhere before we had social media.
She could sing.
She could sing, but I mean, that was the black community's response to, oh, are you trying to leave us behind? What's happening here? So it was a whole thing about Whitney not being able to dance, even though she had this powerhouse voice. So we put that on the table and say, and then of course there was the last thing when she died in an overdose in the bathtub on the night of his Grammy Award party, which is such a hot ticket, and he continued to have the party, and some people thought, really? That should have been canceled at the very least.
Right. I mean, there's all those controversies.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what you can say about him is he did take these black artists and created this bridge when other people weren't doing it. He had brought people forward and gave them an opportunity where other record labels weren't going to do that. And he really felt like black artists should be able to have that opportunity and be in that pop world. And it wasn't easy. Luther Vandross had this same issue that he couldn't get over to the other side. And I think it was part of, his struggles with his music as well. And so he, Clive Davis at least saw that and said, you know what, I'm not going to have this happen.
Well, there's also a little bit of insight there. Talk about what you didn't know. I didn't realize that he'd come out as bisexual
at 80 years old.
And he wrote that openness in all areas of life is an important component of happiness and success. So if you think about how he saw that for himself and his expansive thinking, this helped him to understand artists too, and to think how audiences might embrace them where others would want to keep them in a box.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the consistent comment about his talent and abilities and his support are there, and he has quite the legacy.
Yes.
He certainly does, as does James Burrows, because we go from a titan of taste to a titan of timing. James Burrows, the legendary television director who died at age 85 last Friday, he sculpted some of the funniest shows ever made, including a Boston sitcom sensation.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you...
This, I think, if you grew up in a certain era of watching television, and I saw somebody else write this too, that if you saw James Burrows' name on the screen, which you did about 1,000 times, because he directed about 1,000 shows, including 100 pilots in his lifetime, including all of the episodes of Will and Grace.
Yes.
Then you knew that you were going to get a very particular show, because he brought a very particular sensibility to this. He also helped, like Norman Lear, shape what the multi-camera half-hour sitcom show looked like. And so I think this is why this is such a major loss to Hollywood, because in addition to that, if you look at the remembrances that are pouring out now, he just seemed, not unlike Rob Reiner, another great director, somebody who was warm and a mentor and who just loved his craft.
The other thing about it is, when he got into his stride, he brought the A-team. So all of those shows had exquisite writing.
Yes.
I mean, that people are discovering those shows now, and you just scream with laughter. It's a period piece in some way, or pieces in some way, but you cannot get over the inherent humor and wit and pace and acting, all of that under his umbrella as a director. And as the actor said, allowing them to really be themselves. And what I really appreciated in terms of putting out what his real legacy was, he was the king of ensembles, somebody said, and I agree. So he wanted the cast to become an ensemble, and we responded to that.
That's right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Friends, Cheers, Taxi,
Frasier,
Will and Grace,
yeah.
all of those. But I mean, the thing is like, as a former actress, you know, I mean, he.
What do you mean, former?
Yeah, former. But he really shaped actors, right? And he calls himself a theater rat, and you can see that in his work, right? Because what he didn't care about the camera angles. That's not what he did first. What he did first was bring these people together, set them up in a theater stage play kind of thing, and build the chemistry. That was the most important part of all of these shows, that they had chemistry before the camera started. And that is what everyone's responding to. He mentored them. He was a friend to them. He wanted them to succeed. Incredibly.
He was so tied to Friends, as we've mentioned. So here is James Burrows discussing his approach to making the pilot of Friends on Jimmy Kimmel Live in 2022.
I knew when I was rehearsing the kids, they had this symbiotic relationship. They liked one another, and they would contribute. And I enable that. That's how I work. I work through kindness, and I work like anybody can say anything they want about the show to me. If I direct you to do this and you don't like it, tell me. And it's such a writer's medium. You have to respect what they do. When you run through, you have to show them what they wrote. After that, if you have some suggestions, then you do it. You don't do the suggestions right away.
It's such a collaborative approach to making, and maybe continuing the gay conversation we were just having. I saw Tim Bagley, who is a longtime character actor. You Google me, right away who I'm talking about. He worked with James Burrows many times, especially on Will and Grace, where again, I can't understate how significant it is that he directed every single episode. That hardly ever happens. It's so much work to direct an episode, but he directed every episode. But remember, this was also a time when that kind of a show did not exist. But he was able to take his skill, his standing in the industry, and help craft this show in a way that made it so extraordinarily successful. One of the last shows he did was a show called Mid-Century Modern, and it was on Hulu. I have moved, like much of the country, beyond the multi-camera sitcom. I loved this show. It was so entertaining because, again, it was sort of that James Burrows warmth. This is about a group. It's basically the gay Golden Girls, except you have golden guys living in Palm Springs, and it only lasted one season. He speculated that it's because in 2025, 2026, this country again is not willing to continue this kind of story. But he kept with it, so he was very significant in that regard, too, as a straight man. I believe he's a straight man.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I think he had so much humanity, and I think that's what you see in all of his shows and what he did and how he and how he really was this mentor. And the actor said that they made him better. It's interesting because he directed the first pilot episode of Friends, and he knew at that moment that they were all going to be incredibly successful. So he took them to Las Vegas, and he told them, and he said to them, "You guys are going to be stars." And he just knew it, and he was like, I think, so thankful that they had all come together. But I mean, that's who he was, right? That's who he was. That's the kind of person. So you're right. It's a huge loss for the television. But I do believe that because of that, because of the way that he directed and the way he put together these shows, that there's a template now, and other people are trying to replicate that. And you can see it in some of these sitcoms.
It's difficult because he never went for the cheap laugh. He went for the earned laugh, and you really can enjoy it when he pulls it all together. As he said, when I direct a television show, I try to reach that sweet spot where the best script meets the best performance and the best chemistry between performers. And that's the highest praise I can give, because looking at a Will and Grace show, when they deliver these really witty lines that are the dialogue is so fast, and their movements are in concert with that. I mean, it's just, you just fall out screaming.
And that's
it's
the theater.
So
that's the theater.
Yeah.
That's the theatrical part of it,
Yeah.
which is incredible.
Well, next, more than a century after the Titanic sank, the fight over its remains is still surfacing. RMS Titanic Inc., the company with salvage rights to the wreck, wants to auction off some 100 of its recovered artifacts. But the potential sale is raising questions about preservation, profit, and whether objects from one of history's most famous maritime graves should ever be sold. This is a really icky story because if people don't know the history, RMS Titanic, it's the company founded around the discovery of the Titanic because they found it. They were able to pull about 5,500 objects out of the water, and they own these objects.
Yes, they do.
And then a number of years ago, they went to sell them because they were basically going bankrupt, and the U.S. government and the French government, French being significant because that's where the artifacts first went because it was a French vessel that they had leased to recover them, said, no, you absolutely can't do that. It was stopped, but now they're trying again. So they're before another U.S. court, and this just, again, feels icky. I can understand these objects going out on tour. That's a for-profit endeavor. We just had one here in Boston, and it's very compelling to be up close and personal with these personal objects of people who died. So remember, this is also a grave site at the bottom of the sea. To then turn around and try to sell them, gross.
You know, there's more of this happening. I remember having a similar discussion when Martin Luther King Jr.'s kids wanted to sell some of his artifacts, and at least one of them claimed that a letter that was in Harry Belafonte's apartment belonged to them, and they could sell it. And well, I'll just let people look up Harry Belafonte's very choice response, and let's just say they did not get it. But you know, others had argued, in their case at least, that was a personal thing, and you know, Dad never made any money. You know that so that was it for them, and so the ick factor is still there because you know the man it's a legend in a different way for this country, and yet here are his kids who have other needs. So for this, it's like, yes, there's history here, and we should all be able to see it. And well, I mean, I don't mind him selling some of this stuff, I guess.
I know,
but
like
I don't know.
luggage,
Then I don't know
like,
what to pick, and I
mean,
don't
it's
know.
like the luggage and the jewelry. I mean, I think it just
Yeah.
brings up a lot of questions about how we treat legacy, how we treat ownership, how we treat memory. And you know, I was sort of thinking about like 9/11. Like, are there people that are out there trying to sell a piece of this and a piece of that? Which there were when that happened, and they shut it down. The state shut it down right away. It's different though, right? Because there's salvage law. If you get on a boat and you go down, and it's maritime law. They're two totally different things. So whoever gets those artifacts has the right to sell them, but it still doesn't make it any better that you're thinking that you're profiting off of a mass death, right? And that it shouldn't be. It should be in the archives. You should be able to do like they did here. I brought it here, and you get to see it, and it should be part of a public domain where you can't do that. But but then you get to the legal side of it. So I think we all feel and that it's not it feels icky, as you all said, but unfortunately for the Titanic, it's something that legally they can do.
Well, the court will decide this.
Yes.
So the court hasn't decided yet. In fact, the RMS Titanic group tried to have these documents sealed so nobody would even find out that this was underway, probably because of what happened last time. And by the way, part of the reason they're doing it this time is because there's a $4 million lawsuit because they didn't apparently pay their bills for the last lease for a recent return to the Titanic. But to me, there's no distinction between indigenous artifacts, for example. We would never in this country allow those to go to market, and there has been a conversation even about how they are put on view in museums.
Yes.
So again,
and I can add something to that. There are people and groups going down looking for details of enslaved ships, and they are bringing up some artifacts that thus far have gone to museums. So as they should.
And if people are wondering. First of all, there have been artifacts that have gone out to auction to the tune of 6 figures or even $1 million, but these are objects that were kept by survivors, so like a life jacket and a piece of jewelry. So far, nothing has actually been sold that's been recovered from the sea. So another one will continue to follow.
Yes.
But icky.
Yes.
I'm going to take the last syllable on that one.
Yeah.
Well, coming up, Rhode Island is buzzing over rumors of a Taylor Swift wedding in Watch Hill. We'll sort through the speculation, the Swiftie sleuthing, and why one seaside town suddenly feels like the center of the pop universe. That and more is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
the world takes you outside your borders.
Johannesburg,
Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, Kyiv,
Chiba, Japan.
Because what happens there?
When it comes to EVs, Chinese cars eat everyone's lunch.
Affects what happens at home.
The fact that the sides are talking again, that's a positive step.
I'm Marco Werman.
And I'm Carolyn Beeler. Listen each weekday to The World.
This afternoon at 3 on GBH 89.7. Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Cape Playhouse in Dennis Village. Fairy tale classics come to life in the Cape Playhouse premiere of Into the Woods, Stephen Sondheim's Tony Award-winning musical. Tickets for Into the Woods at capeplayhouse.com. And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Neville Place Assisted Living in Cambridge, providing residents with a range of services designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. More at nevilleplace.org/care.
National news floods your inbox. We focus on what impacts your town. Trusted local news. GBH 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. We're going over the latest arts and culture headlines on our week in review, including a new paradise for playwrights. Long a refuge for writers and artists, Cape Cod will now also be home to Bards on the Bay, a planned Wellfleet retreat for playwrights and theatrical composers founded by Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Paula Vogel and Michael Masso, who led the Huntington Theater for more than 4 decades. And this is also the work of the philanthropist Grace Nordhoff. So basically, Paula Vogel, who is one of our great champions of theater in this country, she led the playwriting programs at Yale and Brown, not to mention, as I mentioned, being a Pulitzer Prize winner, just a force. She recognized that these theater programs, these theater cultivation programs, giving an artist a few weeks to retreat and be with other artists and to have that intergenerational relationship is sinking in this country because places are closing, funding is drying up, and she saw an opportunity that will open in 2028 where theater artists can gather and have this span for writing and being at the Beauty of the Cape, where people like Eugene O'Neill and others, Tennessee Williams, have gone throughout history to find their muses.
I think it's fantastic. What I really think is fantastic about it is at the end of your 1 to 3 week residency, you do not have to have the finished product. I can't tell you how many fellowship programs demand that be the case. And I'm not saying that's a horrible thing, but hey, we know creatives. You need a minute, and it might not be at the end of 3. It might just be getting you started. And so I like that there is not that requirement. And so I think that it's fantastic that this sort of organic, cross-cultural kind of conversation is going to be happening.
What I find interesting and very fascinating is, yes, okay, so this is great, and they're going to start this residency-based deep dive development. Everyone needs it. That's great. And it's sort of like the beginnings, right? But it actually totally changes the Cape dynamic, right? The Cape theater scene. So we saw that the Wellfleet Working Theater, it's the Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater that closed down and canceled for 2026 because of finance. We see this happening at Williamstown, right? So this is great for the writers. So you're going to have the writers, and then you're going to have the Cape Cod Theater Project. So there's already a development arm on the Cape Cod Theater Project, that actually takes already written plays and develops them for Broadway. And then what happens, so now what happens to the regional theaters, right? So we have Vogel just doing this, it's going to the Cape Cod Theater Project. From there, it's going to end up coming to Boston, right? So what's going to happen to places like Wellfleet in Provincetown Theater that actually developed actors, right, who would go on to Broadway. So I think we're seeing it. We're going to see a shift in the Cape Cod theater world. It's bound to happen. I mean, I think it's a good thing. We need these processes, but I do think that we need to keep an eye on what's going to happen to the production side of theater on the Cape.
Well, I will say, knowing these individuals, as I have come to know them over the years, I think they will be very mindful of their landscape, and I think this is where final mention of Michael Masso, who led the Huntington for about 40 years. He knows the regional landscape, the regional theater landscape, better than almost anybody in this country. So if there's anyone who's going to be mindful about that too, it's Michael Masso.
Because I mean,
it's
Cape is known. They're known for their summer theater. We don't want to lose that.
Yeah, this is very exciting. Well, also on the coast, Taylor Swift's wedding rumor mill has churned from New York to Rhode Island, depending on which Swiftie you believe. Her purported nuptials will either take place in the middle of Manhattan at Madison Square Garden or Watch Hill, where Swift's seaside home has become the newest stage for a very unofficial love story. All right, that's enough. I mean, we couldn't get through this show without having to talk about Taylor Swift and this wedding madness and what is happening? I guess we just need the distraction. This is why everybody's talking about it. And is this really going to happen at Madison Square Garden? Yes.
Well, no. I'm saying I'm in a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift. So let me just say, parasocial relationship. So let me just say, I would be shocked and appalled if she actually had her wedding at MSG. I think Rhode Island could be a choice or someplace else. What people don't understand, the woman has billions of dollars. She can fake out in every direction. And I hope to God that she did. I would love it if she faked out everybody.
Why?
Because, listen, that the guy that's on Travis's team and his wife were just interviewed. Can't think of his name. He's got long hair. Anyway, they said, "Do you know where the wedding is?" And they were like, "No, we don't know. They don't tell us."
Because they don't know. It's going to be like the white party. Because you find out. You find out the day
9 months ago.
Because it happened. Right. This is what I said. Why can't they just be like Zendaya and Tom Holland?
They could be
Why
married.
can't they just be like George Clooney and Beyonce? Like really, I mean, they are also. But the problem is that Taylor Swift is her own media ecosystem, right? She's basically a reality show. Everybody benefits on this. Everybody, all of this craziness is because now everyone, all the gossip columns, all the entertainment, all the sports stations, it's giving content to everybody. And so everybody's making money off of it. Everyone's doing it. So yeah, like keep it going. Because you know what? It's noise that we need in this current environment.
I
know it's a lot.
You're kind of swaying me. I just
think she's having a party at
stupid.
MSG.
I have to say, I think it's stupid because it's really going to happen.
I think Callie's onto something.
Okay, here's the thing. I actually think it is a great possibility they are married, and already married, and so it's the big party at MSG. That makes sense to have a blowout party and do whatever you're going to do there. It's hard for me to wrap and I could be way wrong, around the person that has gone to such great lengths for some of her privacy.
You're absolutely right.
And the way that she has protected the privacy of other famous friends of hers to allow this to happen. I mean, she knows everybody thinks she's going over to MSG to get married. She knows they're looking at where all the team players are around there. She knows. And so I think it's the huge fake out. And I love it.
And also, everyone and her fans love this whole Easter egg thing, and everyone's looking for something. It's like
number 3.
Oh, come on, Jared, it's good. We need the
only way I will be happy is if she posts on Instagram that they were married at Ruby Tuesdays on Tuesday, the third day of the week. That would make me very happy.
Wait a second,
you're on. Or the 13th. Her
13th.
number is the 13th.
Right.
Or July 3rd.
I think they're going to Washington to get married by the pool.
Ugh.
No.
Don't wake me up. That's all I'll say. Now to two
You're
other
not gonna wanna miss it.
superstars
You're not going to want to miss it.
who know a thing or two about commanding the headlines. First, Dolly Parton has gone from 9 to 5 to I-65. The country music legend has opened her first truck stop and travel center in Cornersville, Tennessee, complete with fuel, food, showers, Dolly merchandise, and a coffee shop called Cup of Ambition.
I love it.
I love it.
Just can't get any better.
Well, it can't get any better because I have been, this is where,
I know,
this is where I'm obsessed, that I've been very worried about Dolly Parton because we know she disappeared. She canceled her Vegas residency, and I thought,
for health
this is way too long that we have not seen Dolly. But she showed up only for 5 minutes, but
Yes.
she showed up for 5 minutes to open this truck stop.
Yes, I agree with you. I was worried about her health as well. But she told us that, she had some health issues she had to deal with. I love the fact that she figures out all kinds of different ways to parlay her stuff, but it's all stuff she enjoys.
Yes.
And it is also stuff that we parasocial people can enjoy too. So I hope I get a chance to visit one of these.
Absolutely. And I think that she, she's 80. Let's give her, she doesn't need to perform anymore. She doesn't need to do an album anymore. This is all, and she really believes.
But she better.
But she really believes in this because she grew up on the road, right? She grew up decades touring. She's like, I know what people want. This is the next thing. It's tourism related. She can just show up and not have to perform. It's easy peasy for her. And I think it's a great way for her to build her brand, to continue her brand. And like you, Jared, you're happy to see her there because now you know that she's okay, and that's part of it too. That I'm not. We had this conversation about Jay-Z showing up at the picnic, right? It's like I'm still relevant. I'm still here. So I think that that's an important part of it too.
Well, and if you look at the map of it, it's like a little Dollywood. So
I know.
If you can't go to the big Dollywood, you can go to the little Dollywood.
I love it.
And have yourself a literal cup of ambition.
That's right.
Well, also re-emerging this week is Beyonce, who is pulling back the curtain on a very personal story of her hair, family, and inheritance in a new 7-minute sacred video titled The Blueprint. She narrates Jay-Z's decision, that is, to grow out his locks as a show of love for their daughter Blue Ivy, and his decision years later to comb them out in tribute to his father. So this is for this hair product company, but I will say the latter half is totally an ad for all their products, but the first half is incredibly moving.
Very touching. And she talks about Blue feeling that, she didn't feel like she had the same texture as Dad, because Dad had his hair almost shaved bald, and so he grew out his hair to show her, yes, it's the same. And it very much follows a similar plot line for the Oscar short animated film Hair Love, which at 8 years old, as it turns out, Blue got to narrate the audio for the children's book. And it really is about a young black girl and her father and hair. And it's a charming, charming little film. You should watch it.
Well, to have some of this intergenerational aspect, here is Beyonce from this short film / advertisements discussing her daughter Blue Ivy in the recent viral vlog, The Blueprint.
Our daughter was about 5, and she wasn't feeling very confident about her hair at that time. When she told her father that, it inspired Jay to grow out his hair. We really wanted her to love and embrace every inch of her gorgeous curls. It also inspired Blue to be the voice of the award-winning book, Hair Love,
by Matthew A. Cherry,
as well as songs like Formation, Baby Hair and Afros, and Brown Skin Girl.
And we're watching this family in these intimate moments.
Exactly, and I love that, and it's the way that she can also control her visibility. I mean, here is a person who has taken herself out of the public eye, and I understand that, just like Dolly did, sort of like some downtime. But I'm still here, and I'm still part of this whole family, and I want to make sure that people know that. I mean, I think that Matthew Cherry, by the way, had a film at Rock's Film, so I just want to say that. But it really is about storytelling and about promoting her brand just the same way Dolly has done. And I think that people get a different picture of her, and just hearing her voice, she's such a beautiful voice, whether it's a singing voice or just a narrative voice. And I think
it's also important. It's a very cultural piece about hair and its legacy for African Americans, and so on both ends, with Jay-Z taking it out for his dad and growing it out for his daughter is really important.
It's like this cultural comfort food.
And I will say what really struck me is to understand he was growing out for 8 years.
Yes.
As for spanning both the generation to follow and an homage to his father. It gives such a deep layer to people we already understand pretty deeply, because I think song lyrics take us into people very deeply, but then to see how they live their lives as well, and that these are individuals, these are sons and fathers at the end of the day, and mothers and wives looking at their family unit.
Yeah, and I think people are hungry for that. People love these stars, these celebrities. They want to know a little bit more about them and feel a little bit more connected, like Callie saying, as being parasocial. So I think that this gives you the opportunity to feel even closer to them and being like, I have that same issue, I feel that same way. And so that's what's beautiful about both of these things that are happening with both of these folks.
And he shows up as the ultimate girl dad.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Of course he does. Yeah.
I mean, he was just in that pop-up with her in New York City celebrating
really
Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah.
Well, it is now time for our weekend preview with a roundup of our recommendations for upcoming arts and culture happenings. Callie, what are you looking forward to this week?
I have seen it, and I want others to see it in its final weekend. That's In Old Age, which is the 8th play of Mfoniso Udafia's 9-cycle play of the Ufot family. It's a Nigerian family becoming Nigerian Americans. This play, if you've been following it, is the last one in which matriarch character Obasiama will appear, which made some of us very sad who've been following it. But you don't have to. They're all standalones. It's quite touching. It's beautifully acted. And, of course, because Mfoniso has written it so beautifully, it's just a treasure. So get there and see it. It's just on through Sunday.
It's an incredible series.
Yeah.
Lisa, what do you have to guide us to?
I have closing night at the Roxbury International Film Festival. Two films, one starting at 4 and one starting at 7:30. If I go, Will They Miss Me, which is a beautiful film out of Sundance. And then our closing night film, which is Montmartre. I can't pronounce it because I'm not French.
I think that was well done.
Was that well done? Okay, good. This is with Jesse Williams and Ido Aguirre, who's going to be here. She was in Picard and she was in Grey's Anatomy, so she's going to be here with the director Leon Hendricks, and it really is this love story that takes place in France and in Paris, and it's basically before sunset. Is that what it is? After sunset, before sunrise kind of conversation, and they meet for a day, and they fall in love, and who does? It's a beautiful, and we need that. We need joy,
we need
and excitement, and we need Paris.
We need love.
We need
so come on out,
Paris.
everybody.
Yeah. So that's tonight where?
That's tonight at the Museum of Fine Arts.
And then mine is Delirium by Arlequin Players Theater, which just opened this week, and I have to say it is a really, really extraordinary show. As I said on Morning Edition yesterday, stop what you're doing. Well, don't stop what you're doing right now. Finish listening to us, and then get your tickets. You will want to see this one. But let me just explain what you're seeing so you understand. It's a play by Eugen Ionesco, based on Frenzy for Two. Arlequin Players Theater has adapted it for the stage. It's called Delirium. Ionesco was, of course, one of the founders, like Beckett, of Theater of the Absurd. So here we find the absurdity of a couple who's long married having an argument about whether a snail and a turtle are related in terms of being creatures, while outside there's a war raging, and you see smoke billowing, and you hear bombs exploding, and you hear people being abducted, and yet this couple is consumed with having this argument about something so banal. And he's dressed in his black suit and patent leather shoes, and she's in her sparkly dress, and then later pearls. Everything is just so absurd about this, and I realized this is what it's like in my head right now as we look out at the world, which is just in so much disrepair or worse, and yet we go about our regular lives. But then in the hands of Igor Goliak, this incredibly visionary director, it is so visually sumptuous, and these two actors, who, by the way, are have left Russia, they're Russian, as Igor told me, Russian celebrities, basically, can't go home again, adds to the meta nature of this. It's a hugely powerful and actually hilarious piece. So that's playing at the Calderwood Pavilion through July 2nd. Again, Delirium by Arlequin Players Theater. Well, that is all for this edition of The Culture Show. We have a big one planned for next week, all week. Tune in Monday for actress and director Olivia Wilde on her saucy new film, The Invite. Callie and I have seen it. Did you see it too, Lisa?
I have not seen it yet.
Fabulous.
It's fabulous. So we'll talk to Olivia about that.
I've been a little busy. So.
Yes, that's true. You have. On Tuesday, BSO President Chad Smith joins us to address the controversy that has engulfed the symphony, as well as the Tanglewood season and what's to come. And then on Thursday, we'll broadcast the show from Provincetown, where legendary townie John Waters leads the show, which is very exciting as we take the show on the road next week. Nice. Well, thanks today to Henry Santoro for curating today's Culture Cast. The BPL technical and logistics crew is Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, and Pat Lally. Our engineer is Bill Piacciatelli. Additional thanks to the Lennox Hotel and the Newsfeed Cafe. The Culture Show crew is Max Chow-Gillette, Kate Dellis, Chelsea Mers, and our interns are Katie McCabe and Adina Velasquez. Thank you to everyone who came down to be here with us at the library today. We always love seeing you. I'm Jared Bowen. If you're on the road again, say hi to Dolly for me and have an art-filled weekend.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.